Yeah, I mean, so I can tell you like what I know and stuff
Yeah,
about the game,
yeah, it's a good
and
start.
like I can tell you my experience as well. So far, I'm pretty much uh my personal side of things is that I'm just playing with my friend group right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I've played MapleStory as a whole. Like I've played private servers like for like a while
Mm-hmm.
after the Big Bang patch came out, like in classic GMS or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Run back to safety.
so yeah, so I think that was like 2009 maybe. So that's when I like stopped playing GMS and went on to private servers. And I pretty much only like played private servers since then and have never like really went to like higher versions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, until recently, I went to this high version private server, which was it's kind of like it was fun, but it was like really bad in a lot of ways. Like it was like poorly moderated and
Yeah, a
it
good
had like a lot
reset
of
and
like
everything, right?
things private servers have. Yeah, stuff like that. There's like wipes and the servers are just not stable. I mean, honestly, playing GMS kind of feels like a private server because the servers aren't stable, but um,
But hopefully that reset isn't constantly looming over your head as much. Yeah.
yeah. And I have somewhat of an idea of what class I want to play.
Mm-hmm.
I think I want to play Marksman as my main
Mm-hmm.
for right now. I haven't really played like many classes yet, though, so that opinion might really, it's like really tentative right now because
Okay.
it can change. I think. Um, but yeah, I want to play Marksman because I just like bows. Like that's just I just have fun like playing bow characters like in every game I play.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the main niche, I guess. And I like their like the lens move thing, like the iframe that they have, where like you click a lot.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of
Uh-huh.
fun. Yeah, that was fun for me. That gave me dopamine. And then
Used to be a bit annoying when we had the monster codex because you would like click on bosses to kill them and then you'd open up their loot table on your screen. It was a
oh
little
shit.
bit, yeah. Like on Arc, it would always
Yeah,
trigger like I'd be shooting him from a distance, and then I get like his drop table with like his picture, and like the codex would open. It's like I have to close that before I
that's
could
so
loot everything.
funny.
Yeah, weird interactions, but that's gone now. Now I kind of miss it, but
Yeah.
at the moment it was very
Oh
annoying.
no.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's been my experience so far, and I was told that I should um just like make a Kana like mule, like terra burn it and like farm on it,
Hmm.
just so I could like fund like my main character, I guess, and that would like probably be like the best solution short and long term. I'm not really sure if that's true, but that's what I was told.
Hmm.
And I'm also just because I haven't played in such a long time, like probably over 10 or so years. I know some things like there's um like some of like the star forcing and like the like eternal flames and stuff like that, but I'm just
You know
really
they
lost on like
exist,
everything.
or you know that they're important, but like
I know
placing
they're
them.
important. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I thought about the fundamentals a little bit. Like I feel like MapleStory fundamentals probably is like mechanics, like bossing, mobbing, like gearing, like building
Hmm.
more maybe. I say more building than gearing is probably more overarching, and then like
Building, you
below
mean
that is
more
like gearing.
account building, or
Yeah, I mean I think building is probably
it's a
maybe
part of
that's too big
funding, right?
actually.
It's all.
Yeah. I guess gearing funding like resource allocation
Hmm.
probably.
Yeah.
Like economy sort of.
Yeah.
Like and then like optimizing miso gain and stuff like that. Like I feel like there's like a lot of optimization that has been had, but I just am like googling everything and I just like don't know like what
Yeah,
to
and
even
stuff's
find.
moving quickly as well. So, and there's definitely different styles of playing as well, and they'll come down to like your profile. Yeah, I think that's a good amount of background information to get started with. I guess the main step is always kind of like figuring out what kind of your profile is as a player, right? Are you the person who's going to be not every single day, but like being able to dedicate like 12 to 14 hour sessions and just like going insanely hard? Like where do you kind of like
Oh,
land on the spectrum of like how
I think
sweaty, I guess?
for me, I'd probably be like mild to moderate. Like I feel like maybe I could do like 4 to 6 hours like a day.
Hmm.
Um, maybe if I feel like it like 8 or like the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in general I'd probably be like a 4 to 6 hour Andy.
And you have and your friends are like on the same wavelength as that, like they're on the same page.
No, I think right now they're on break, so they're playing like all day. But like I think in general they will probably be like maybe like 6 to 8 hour Andy or like 4 to 6 hour Andys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So because usually for people it gets a little bit annoying after a while if there's a big disparity with the people that are playing with, if they're like way stronger or way weaker, right? It can cause some friction.
That's definitely true.
Yeah.
I feel that even now because I just don't know anything and they just know a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Or not even a lot more, but they're just like
kind of winging it or brute forcing it or
yeah. I'm just not that type of person, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I really like planning everything out and thinking about like which decisions are best long term. So
sure.
in a sense, I'm sort of like paralysis, like or like paralyzed by like some things.
By options and by indecisiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense because there's so much that you don't know, so you don't know what you don't know, so you don't want to accidentally make like huge mistakes. I get that. Okay, and you said like some of the basics. What have you already checked from like specifically from my resources, I guess, or what have you seen that has given you already some good ideas on what to expect?
I've only seen the Reddit guide, which I feel like is outdated, and
so what is the Reddit guide?
So Reddit guide is like there's like this guide on Reddit. It's like MapleStory Reboot guide.
Is it Pocket's guide?
It's originally created by 4Phantom. Oh yeah, it is Pocket Stream. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
That one. And
yeah, because I know he has like a huge one.
I read like half of it and then I got bored.
It's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I read half of it and then I got bored. And then I watched like your video, starting GMS Reboot in 2021.
Yep.
I watched half of that and then I got bored. And
was it too what got you bored, I guess, so that we can avoid that here?
Oh, my attention span. So
okay.
It has nothing to do with your video.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, 80% of it is just me. I'm just the type of person that like hops around things a lot, and usually I'll get back to it. But yeah.
Sure. And do you find yourself doing that in games as well? Do you like want to hop around characters as well, or are you very dedicated to one character, but then you hop around between content within a character, for example?
I think I'm pretty much dedicated to one character, but I do think I get like lost in the sauce a lot, and I do kind of just mix around a lot of things. Yeah, on that one character.
Mm-hmm. But you would prefer, so like the end goal, and to go back to like what kind of profile and what kind of gamer you are, like we're looking at the hours, but we're also looking at like dedication and span and long sessions and stuff. Do you aspire, like maybe with your friends, or who knows in a year where they are going to be, where you're going to be, but is the goal to like go Black Mage, go Saren, go like new content? Is it just like general? Do you have like a specific goal in mind, or are you just trying to take it one step at a time and make sure that you?
I don't really know if I have an overarching goal in mind yet. I just feel like, I guess you're right. Probably just, I guess the only goal in mind that I have is like clearing content, but I don't really think of it as a goal either. Like
that's just the effect
right now.
I guess okay. Here's the main question: like, do you generally compare yourself to other people, or do you compare yourself to yourself and you try to improve upon where you are?
I do both, but I think mostly it's comparing myself to other people, but I also compare myself to myself. I compare to myself. Yeah, that makes sense.
Would you feel worse seeing that you haven't gotten stronger yourself, or would you feel worse that someone else has gotten more strong than you did?
I would initially feel like jealous or envious, and then that kind of washes away after I think like, oh, well, I guess it doesn't really matter because I have all these factors, like there's like so many variables into everything. So exactly. I just have to like worry about myself only.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think that I think we'll always have like a healthy level of being envious, because like, well, they're a person, I'm a person. We kind of like on an emotional level, you're like, if they could do it, I should be able to do it. But then you think like, well, you know, I have all these things going on. They might have nothing going on. It's kind of weird to put myself at the same standard when you don't know. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off. No, that's my bad. But also, I wanted to add in half the time. I think it's not just envy or jealousy. It's also like admiration. Sometimes I feel like inspired to do things as well.
Yeah.
I see someone like.
Yeah, I think that's the healthy part. If it brings you like inspiration, like, hey, I want to try that too, but not like now I feel inferior because they have this thing and I don't have it, and maybe I never will.
Yeah.
Or that can like be a little bit paralyzing as well, and question your motivation, right? So if most of your motivation is coming from like, I know that it's possible because I see someone has done it and I'm already here and I just need to take one step forward and I'll already be closer to where they are than where I am now. So as long as I keep doing that, eventually I'll get close to that or I'll get there, right? As long as you can kind of always look back and see how far you've already come. That's usually, because there will be a time where progress will start getting very, very slow and you'll have to start celebrating like the very small victories. And that's how this game will end up being. So like, just set yourself up for not feeling too discouraged by, you know, not immediately reaching something, because you could be looking at someone who's already dunked like 10,000 hours, 15,000, 20,000 hours into this game, right? And some people expect to just be able to catch up even within a year or something, but in a year they've also played another year, maybe as much or even more than you, right? So you might never fully catch up.
Oh, I don't expect anything.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
That.
No, I'm just like kind of like gauging your your general opinion on that, I guess. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Yeah. So we'll and your friends are like similar. You guys are planning to like be in the same guild, be in the same party, kind of do the same bosses together. I don't know how many people are in the friend group.
I should ask them that, but usually what we do is we just sort of wing everything. Or they just sort of wing everything, and usually we're just in it for like, they're just in it for like like a good time, not like a long time sort of thing.
Okay, yeah.
And usually like we game hop, like my server game hops a lot. I'm not planning on doing that, but I'm also planning on like being along like with their journey, but I also have like my own journey that I am planning with MapleStory.
But you haven't really spoken about like what either of those two journeys are, essentially. Like, I guess your personal one is just like generally progressing and just trying to clear content one at a time, ticking the boxes and kind of like moving forward.
Yeah, pretty much.
But with your friends,
their journey, with our journey, we haven't like spoken much. I think, well, actually, we have like, I think we have like this idea of wanting to clear things together, but also progressing at our own pace.
Yeah. So it's more like, hey guys, do we want to do like Lotus next week? And it'd be like, okay, no, we can't do that yet. Let's do it in 3 weeks or something. Or be like, oh yeah, sure, let's try.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, okay. So you like tap in and out of the group experience while you're just kind of still doing your own thing. Yeah. And do you guys have any plan for like guild? Like, are you going to join the same guild, or is everyone just going to kind of go in their own way?
I have no idea what we're going to do for a guild. I think our plan is probably make our own guild.
Because the thing with guild is that there's a huge power creep in guild skills, and like the sooner you get used to that, the huger the bump is in the beginning, but the more you'll learn to rely on that, and that bump will kind of like fade away and become normal. If you make your own guild, you can like grow into that, right? And it can kind of like scale with you. But if you immediately join like a big guild, you might pile on a few expectations or a few responsibilities, which probably isn't that bad. But if some people have it, some people don't, that will also create like a bigger disparity between like how strong people are and what kind of content you can clear.
Oh, I see. So guild matters that much. I didn't know that.
Quite a bit, yeah, because they have like a 30% critical damage skill now and a 30% damage skill that lasts half an hour, and you can use them every hour. So it's like 50% uptime on both of them. Time. Yeah. So you can alternate between them if you're training, so that can keep your get your leveling speed quite up on the lower range of levels, and then also in the higher if you just need a lot of damage, and it can also facilitate you going into utility gear like meso-obtain and drop rate gear that doesn't give you as much damage, but it gives you way more money when you're clearing monsters, and then you can have the buffs kind of like make up the difference, and that could definitely make your time way more efficient versus someone else who doesn't have it. So that might be something that you guys want to discuss on how you're gonna attack that. If they're more like happy-go-lucky and just trying to do their own thing, you know, that might not be as important to them, and you can like decide maybe I'm not going to use the guild skills, otherwise I'm just gonna like maybe, you know, like maybe do way more damage than everyone. Or if you feel like they're actually getting ahead a little bit of you because you're taking things more slowly, then you can use the guild skill to bridge the gap, and then they don't have to be like super far ahead of you, you know. You can use them as a tactical tool.
How would I join a bigger guild, or how do I even know if it's like a big guild or anything like that?
There is, so if you open up the guild menu, there's not much for you there, but on the bottom left there's a search option. But I think you have a is there like a, if you're just joining and you don't have anything yet, don't you see like a huge yeah, I don't know if I can I even see guilds, guys? Can I just do like an open search if I'm not in a guild?
You want me to like screenshot what I have?
Yeah, there's a bunch of like blue stuff, right? Or like cyan.
Yeah, there's like a lot of blue.
Yeah, so they should have like descriptions of, yeah, it's like level, guild, right? Average level, and you can see the greeting message, so you can kind of see what they're looking for.
What is the max guild level?
Is it still 30, guys? Is 30 still max guild level? I think so. We're level 30, but I think it stops counting after that, right? Yeah, the bar seems pretty full, so I guess it stops at 30, yeah.
It's 30. And does the guild level matter? Like, is that like what like makes you a big guild or a top guild?
A little bit, but not really. Like, if it's 30, that just means that there's a decent amount of people in it and has existed for quite a while. But if you're like, you know, it's one of those things where if you're 27, no. So a guild could have been level 30 a while ago and still be level 30 because it just doesn't lose honor experience anymore. But then it could have just one person in it and it could be completely dead.
So that's not relevant to buffs. Like, how do you get buffs in a guild then?
There's like 3 ways. One is just like playing the game, you know, like killing monsters, killing bosses. That can give you participation points, and that goes up to a total of 10. There's like weekly mission points. You can get, up to 5 per person, and the whole guild can get up to 200. So basically, if you have 40 people who are just playing the game normally, you cap out on that, and that gives you 10 of the skill points. And then Culvert is where you just have like a 2-minute fight with a NPC and just do as much damage as possible, and then all of your scores of everyone in the guild get added up, and then on Sunday they basically make the rankings, and then based off the percentage of your ranking of everyone who participated, you get a certain amount of skill points. And then there's also Flag Race, which is basically just like a jump quest, and you try to clear it as fast as possible, and then based on how fast you are, you get a certain amount of points, and then again all the points get added up and get a ranking, and then based on the percentage you get skill points for that. So that's the Flag Race is changing, though, at least changing KMS. It's going to change into a similar way like the login thing.
I see.
So it's going to be...
So you participate in these guild things, and you get points, and based on your score, you get a certain amount of points that lets you get guild buffs?
That puts you on the ranking, and then based on your ranking, you will get skill points at the end of the week, and then your guild can choose where they spend those skill points. It's pretty much always like the critical damage. The hard hitter gets maxed first because that's just really broken, and then usually it's damage because damage applies to both normal monsters and boss damage, and boss monsters. So that one's just uniform. And then, you know, IED can definitely be really good, and like, you know, if people get more than 45 skill points, because usually boss damage is the next one that people max, then you go into IED as well, but IED is usually used last because are you familiar with IED and how that works?
IED is, I don't know necessarily how it works. I know it's armor penetration. Like, I know it's like pretty much you reduce a percentage of the boss's armor, and so that is very helpful for increasing your overall damage output.
Yeah, but on bosses only. But so the main thing is that people usually already try to reach certain IEDs by themselves as they're soloing. So like an IED buff like this is a nice extra to have, but you typically already want to have a reliable IED number to get a good damage output, even when you're soloing. So usually this is like a min-maxy thing on the end. Maybe you can, you know, like if you have a familiar with IED, maybe you can switch it to a boss damage one instead to kind of min-max your damage. But in general, IED is like the least super necessary. It might be necessary for people who are doing like Seren or something, because Seren has more PDR than all the other bosses in the game. And by that time, people who are doing that boss are probably in like the top guilds who have the skill points for it, so for that it will make sense. But for everyone else, you're just trying to stack flat damage basically.
So what makes a top guild is, or like, sorry, not even top guild, what makes you get these, like, a lot of buffs is pretty much you have to be top ranking, and to be top ranking, I'm assuming you either have to be very funded or
It's not as crazy as you
a lot
think.
of people.
Yeah, you need
participate.
definitely power in numbers. It's not as crazy as you think though, because you can look at the participation of last week. We have we have 2.5 pages of people participating in the culvert, and that got us the top like 15% or something. Oh, top 14%, which is already 17 skill points. You know, and then for the flag raise, we had last week. I think we had just over 3 pages, I think. 1, 2... Oh, exactly 3 pages of people participating, so it was like 18 per page, so like 54 people, and that got us into top 18%, which is 14 skill points. And then so you get 10, 17, 14, so that's 41 skill points, so that's 2 skills maxed, and 11 out of 15, like almost maxing the third
What
one.
is like the best guilds? Like, what is like the max like amount of
If
points?
you have like double rank 1, then you can max everything, then you get 60. But that's only one guild in the entire game.
That's only if you get. That's only one guild.
Yeah, it's only one
not
guild.
Like top 5 guilds or like
no,
top,
like the second one immediately has like 1 or 2 skill points less. Yeah. So that you can very quickly get to the point where you can like max out. Maxing out 1 skill is almost immediately. Maxing out 2 skills is pretty quickly. But if you want to go from maxing out 2 skills to 3, that's a very big jump. That's a very big concerted effort. So, yeah.
The guild skills is independent for each person, right? Like you get to have your own setup.
Exactly. Once you click it, it goes on cooldown, and then you can just use it again once the cooldown is over.
Yeah.
Yep. But it is and the other thing is that you also have these guild these guild buffs up here, right? So this is kind of determined by level. That's why level is a little bit important, but it's not insane. But like the earlier in the game you are, the bigger these buffs are. Like for example, there's 30 Arcane Power here. You know, if you're at like 1100, whether you have 1100 or 1130, it's not that big of a deal. But if you have 30 or 60, it's a huge deal, right, in the beginning. So there is definitely some utility.
I'm not necessarily sure of that. So Arcane Power pretty much, it's for like the arcane maps, right?
Yeah.
Like the monsters that you fight.
Mm-hmm.
And the more power you have, the more damage you'll deal to them.
Yeah, and the less you will take. Right? Yeah, every map, if you hover over it on the world map, every map has a that is an arcane map has like a number.
Arcane Power.
Yeah, and it says how much it is. So like this one is 320, for example. And then if I go, if you go into that map, it'll basically tell you. You could just hover over the UI on it on the top left. It'll just tell you like how much you need, how much you have, and what your multiplier is. So you can see I have 1,360 on this character because it's a pretty old character out of 280, which is like 500%, which means I get the max benefit, which is 50%. So I deal plus 50% final damage, right? Ratio of damage dealt 150, and then ratio of damage taken is down to 0 when you're at that number. So the ratios are 10%, 30%, and 50% above. I think there's ratios below as well, but you just want to immediately go to the number of the map or higher. That's what you're aiming for. And then the bosses in the Arcane River have the same thing, where basically the way that you would get a penalty on the armor, right, based on the IED difference of the boss, in the same level there's a possible penalty based on the level difference. That's with regular monsters and with bosses as well. So that's why you can't just go to level 270 if you're level 100 and kill them. Like you will just deal no damage, right? And in the same way, if they're arcane bosses, there's also a possible final damage penalty if you don't meet the requirements of the boss.
So all of these things factor into like mobbing, right? Like
mobbing, bossing, they're all part of scaling.
Train.
Yeah, they're all part of scaling and funding. You basically want to get a balance of all of these stats. You can't really just overpower on one stat and have it compensate for the other ones. You need like a bare minimum of everything to be able to progress.
I have a question. Like, so theoretically, then, like, there's like an optimal like setup. Like, so like depending on like everything that you have, like where you are in terms of power and where you are in terms of like, in terms of gear and arcane power and like pretty much everything. There's like that dictates pretty much like where you should train at a specific like point in your leveling or whatever.
Yeah, so you remember back in the day, we used to look at the damage range, right?
Yeah.
And that would kind of just dictate what you're talking about now, right? Because if you had a certain range, that meant like, oh, you were strong for your level or you were weak for your level, and then you would know what being strong or weak for your level meant and what the consequences were of that.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah. Well, since there are so many of the other multipliers that give you final damage addition or penalties, like all of the ones I just mentioned, none of these show in your damage range, because what your damage range is still doing is, doing a certain calculation and seeing like, here's the number of damage that I use before calculation, like this is the number I send your attacks out with. But then you use a certain attack with a multiplier, you attack a boss that has armor, you attack a monster maybe that's debuffed, so there's an on-hit effect. All of that stuff is all not accounted in the damage range. So we've basically moved completely away from the damage range, but you still have a lot of information in your stat window that's very important. So
you've like pretty much diluted like a lot of like range as a whole.
Range is basically just completely meaningless at this point. As like,
okay.
as the only number, if you give someone your range, that means absolutely nothing. Because someone who has like, someone with 1 million range could possibly like solo Lotus and Damien, but someone with 100 million range could maybe deal only 1 damage per hit to like Chaos Root Abyss bosses that are like a lower tier. It's perfectly possible, and it mainly comes down to those multipliers, right? Your IED isn't high enough, you're not ignoring enough armor, you get 100% damage reduction, boom, you deal no damage anymore, instantly, right? So so it's important to know like what are those sweet spots and what kind of content can you do. So like the main things, and like the exclamation mark range video goes into this. There's 2 main things that I have that are very important and that are usually part of the these are like the bread and butter if you want to get started, honestly. So basically, what do I think is a better indicator to use than range? And for me, it comes down to level. Level is the best indicator because you have the level difference penalty, right? And level scales with a whole bunch of other stuff. It scales with your ability power, right? Your regular stats that you get when you level. It scales with once you get to 5th job, which is very important, with your matrix, like how many slots you have available, right? That kind of stuff, and how many level ups in the matrix slots that you can do to level up the slots themselves. And it gives you access to areas that give you access to certain bosses, to certain rates, to certain monsters, to certain content. So I feel like the level really is what it all comes down to ultimately, because if the content wasn't as level gated, it would be harder to use like a 1 number. So how do you make the number a good predictor where range isn't? That's a tricky one, right? So I basically wrote down like all of the potential numbers and stats that people will use, and things that I think are very important when it comes to multipliers in the game for your damage output, not your damage range, right? But your damage output, and basically listed what is a good number to go for. This takes into account accessibility. It takes into account cost. Takes into account like opportunity cost of where do you spend your money, like right resource allocation. It takes into account what is a realistic amount that you can possibly go for. And there might be some outliers, of course, because characters' kits can be very different, right? If I say like, oh, the goal is to try to get your critical rate up to 60%, and it's like, oh, but my character already gets 80% by itself. Is that bad? Well, no, of course not. Like, you don't want to get a lower or something. It's just like, bare minimum, and like basically it goes from bare minimum to advisable rates, basically. And there is, like I said before, like you can't go 100% on something and 0% on something else, but you can kind of compensate. Like, let's say that you really like bouncing around, like playing a lot of different characters. And unlike you're not as hyper dedicated to one character. You can build your Legion level up way higher, for example, and have that to kind of like cushion the blow on another stat that you might not have as much of. Maybe you want to main a Kana, starts with very low crit rate, very low IED. That might make it harder to boost those stats. So if you want to still be able to boss and do a decent amount of damage, you might have to level up your Legion level a bit harder in the beginning to kind of accommodate for that. So these are like the numbers that you want to aim for to make sure that you can use your level as an indicator of how strong you are. But now you have that level, and it still doesn't really mean anything. So the second step is, what are the dailies that you can do, and what are the bosses, and what is the content you can do, and at what level do I think it's worth your time to consider trying this content? As a, not as a, like, you have to do these, or you're a noob, or like, if you don't do the, like, you you can't possibly do these and it's a huge waste of time. It's just a general guide of, I think these things are worth looking into around that level. And again, if you're trying with a bunch of friends, then it's probably going to be easier. If you're trying solo, it's going to be on the harder end. If you're duoing or trioing, then the further you go, the bigger the challenge, right? That's what it comes down to. So this is like a general guide of like all the content. So there's like links in pretty much all of these to either guides or to wiki pages with the numbers, and they'll have stuff like the PDR. They'll have stuff like the drop tables of the monsters. They'll have things like how much HP, how much EXP does the boss give, all of that stuff. The latter of the two being less and less important, because you have the indicators already, so you don't need to know exactly how much HP it is. Plus, EXP from bosses is pretty much negligible. As soon as you get like past level 200, like it doesn't register for anything anymore. But for early, and it can a little bit. So there's the one page that kind of looks at like what kind of stuff can you get from the bosses. The crystal value, I don't know if you're aware of this, like bosses drop crystals that you can sell for Mezzo.
Right, I remember those, like the eggs, right?
Yeah, the big blue shiny ones.
The blue ones. Yeah.
So those are going to be changing soon, hopefully. But some of the changes have already gone through. But the biggest change is that you'll basically just in a map you'll be able to quick move and talk to the collector here, and you can do check price, and you'll just be able to see what every crystal is worth, right at the time where you're going to sell it. So if you're in a week,
half of those, right? Is half of those prices? Right?
No, these are the full prices if you solo. So if you would duo, it would go down by 50%. If you're trioing, it would go down by 66%.
Oh, okay, yeah. My friend carried me in like some of these things.
Yeah, so you would get half. Yeah, exactly. And it says so on the crystal before you sell it. It says like you killed this boss with X people in the party. And then based on X, it would get divided by X basically.
Are the eggs instants? Or
yes, everyone gets their own, yeah. And then it's half the value, yeah. So this goes to 2, etc. And so right now you can sell 60 per week per character. So the collector here will tell you how many more you can sell. But this is going to change to 180 per account per week. So it'll be a little bit more of a matter of like optimizing, not for you just yet, right? Because like 180 is like way out there. But once you have more and more characters going and you can do more and more bosses, depending on, and the rates of the crystals are going to change. Like the base price is going to change, and they're going to fluctuate weekly based on how popular a boss is. So the less popular bosses, the ones that aren't getting killed as much, are going to go up quite substantially over time, and the ones that are very popular are going to go down quite substantially. So that can like
an interesting system.
Yeah. So in the beginning, it might be a very good source of income, especially on the dailies that give like 7-8 mil. Those are very strong in the beginning, but you don't want to get stuck on doing those for too long, because after a while, just traveling and going to the boss and killing it and looting everything might actually take longer than just training and looting the money from monsters. So you want to use them in the beginning as like a temporary setup to make more money, but don't hold on to them for too long, because it will actually become inefficient. Unless you really like doing it, then do whatever you want. But from like an efficiency standpoint, kind of like, cause some people try to min-max, like making sure they get exactly 60 every week, and like min-maxing on this crystal is worth 200k more than the other one. And the time you spend like, and the time you spend min-maxing that, you're actually doing the opposite of min-maxing, because if you're just training on a totem the whole time, you'd make way more, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes
unless you're like literally God and can calculate all of it.
Yeah, while you're training, you're like calculating it in your head. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you're literally like fucking insane.
What is the gif with the guy from The Hangover where he's like thinking and he sees all the numbers like floating through the air? Yeah, they're basically like doing that one. Yeah.
Pretty much that.
Yeah. So it's useful at certain times, and you'll see like once you get to the weekly bosses, like it's a huge jump, right? Like you're doing CRAs like 50 mil per clear, so there is definitely good scaling value on being able to kill these bosses faster. But the sooner you start killing these bosses, the sooner you'll also feel, just like psychologically, you'll feel yourself getting stronger, because every single time you're killing these bosses, it's just a little bit faster, First I needed like 3 binds, then I needed 2, now I can just do it in one big bind burst, right? And at a certain point, you won't feel the progress anymore, because the boss is just going to blow up. But then you need to look at all the bosses that are one step harder and see how much those are speeding up, right? And you kind of just move the goalpost. Or you go to a different character and you start over. Whatever, if you feel a different character is more your style, right? And then you start setting expectations, and then you can start getting disappointed. But before that, it's great, okay?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So here, there's links for all this stuff, and then what's advisable, what stacks with what is weekly and what is daily and stuff, and then this has all the numbers. So this is usually what I use as the baseline as well, to go by where are you in the game, what is like a good thing for you to work on, and how can we set like goals for you for what to work on, because all of these are basically also linked to other commands with more explanation on the details, with calculators, right? So, because I'm saying like, oh, this takes into account the opportunity cost. Of course, it's not a super exact science. Like I haven't number crunched exactly everything, but this is like broad strokes. I don't like to do like the 100% exact mathematical equation stuff, because that is constantly changing. I like to do more like general goals. Like if you reach these things, you will be able to do that content, you know, and you will be in the ballpark.
I guess a good direction for me right now, and things that I can ask you. This is sort of how we can, I think, structure this video. Is now it's like, how can I efficiently get to these points in the game, and like what is like the general structure and details of things that I should be doing right now to efficiently prepare for these.
Sure.
Which is a very loaded question, I think.
It's a broad question, yeah.
It's very broad and loaded, but I wonder how we tackle this.
Yeah, so the term efficiently is usually the first one I want to get down to the bottom of, because some people, for some people, efficiently means like actually making a spreadsheet and spending like 8 hours and like mapping the whole thing out, right? You don't seem to be quite that tier, because otherwise I would have expected more.
No, I'm not.
But I've had those, you know, and that's like interesting to me, but I'm not like at that level too. Like people are like, oh, he's a spreadsheet and a numbers guy, but I'm like the general ballpark numbers guy, so I don't have to worry about the numbers. I know that I'm roughly in the right area, so I don't have to min-max too much. I know that I can, you know, do things around there. Some people see it as like,
I'm sort of in that area.
Yeah.
But I'm also sometimes touch on the numbers. But
it's
I'm
fine to make like a
area.
to-do list, you know, like a daily and a weekly to-do list, so you can like strike things off, whatever works for you, you know. For some people that works with homework, they just make a big long list, so they, whenever they finish something, they could just like strike it out, and it feels really good to like finish things, you know. For me, I try to keep all the things kind of in my head, because I like to keep practicing my brain to keep my memory sharp. But that's maybe not fun for other people, you know. Everyone does what works for them. So, So how can we
the
get?
way I would structure it is I would probably sorry, I cut you off.
No.
I would probably structure it in a way where it's like, so I have these things I should do daily, and I will list them out, and I will like try to allocate like where I should efficiently like place like a general range of my time into those things, depending on how much time I want to spend on the game. So like right now, I'm pretty sure I want to spend around 4 to 6 hours. Like, what are the things that I should be doing to pretty much efficiently like progress like in like a general sense towards like clearing content, I guess.
Yeah, so there's like,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, so just 3 points to that. Point 1 is it depends on what things are fun for you, because when you're looking at like doing things efficiently, for some people, just only doing the stuff that's like meta, that makes 100% objective sense to do, that like kills their soul, and they're gone from this game within like 3 weeks, because it just isn't fun, and it becomes like chores and homework, and it doesn't feel like there's any room for enjoyment or for self-expression. You kind of have to know yourself in that regard. Like, what do you feel like your ratio is? Like, if you play 4 hours in a day, and 3 hours and 45 minutes of that are like obligated dailies, and 15 minutes is like hopping around and maybe doing something that you can kind of just freely choose to do. Like, what kind of distribution of time would you feel is realistic?
Oh, so I would feel like out of like we'll just say like out of like 4 to 6 hours, I would probably, in order for me to not get like burnt out by any of that, realistically, I feel okay grinding. It's like a neutral for me. Sometimes it feels good. Sometimes it's like I don't want to be bothered.
So
but generally,
just
it's
to say, like with that, grinding and dailies is pretty much always mutually exclusive.
Grinding and dailies are mutually exclusive.
Pretty much. So if you're doing like if you're doing dailies in areas for symbols, you're gonna have to switch maps like pretty quickly because it's like 200 kills, which you will get very, very quickly. The only times when it overlaps is when there are events going on, and there's event currency that you can get by killing monsters near your level, for example, and then you can double dip over that. But that's going to be limited as well, depending on how big the event is. Usually dailies is like going to different areas, killing different bosses, and grinding, or well, maybe you have a different definition of grinding, but like usually definition of grinding is like going to a map, having like a whole list of potions, and just like turning your brain off and just like, you know, just like destroying the genocide simulator, like just like, making sure that there's nothing scorched earth. Yeah. So that's pretty much always like 98% of the time is mutually exclusive to dailies and to weeklies. Yeah,
makes sense. So I guess okay, so like ratio for things would be like, I guess like I would feel good about clearing all of my dailies, I think. But it really depends on how many dailies I think that there is. I'm not really sure of like how many dailies there are.
Yeah. But and that's kind of like an amorphous blob for you right now. I get that.
Yeah. So right now, I think realistically it's like 25% of my time spent on dailies. And then I would say like 25% on like, maybe more, maybe like 45-50% on like grinding levels or something. And then the rest is probably just like kind of like doing my own thing and like hopping around, like doing like, I don't know, smithing or something, or just something like that, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, so you're looking at like an hour to an hour and a half a day of dailies, and like 2.5 hours a day on grinding, and then the rest of the time just whatever you feel like doing. Might be grinding, might be dailies, might be weeklies, might be hanging out with your friends, whatever.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's doable. There might be some times in the game where the dailies will expect more of you, but again, like if there are events going on and that kind of like piles onto your dailies, you want to set yourself up to double dip as much as possible, right? Like activate all of those quests before you do anything so that it can tag along with as you're doing stuff, because there are certain events in the game that will pop up, you know, like surprise missions or like portals in the maps, and sometimes those will need to be cleared for daily progress for events. But if you start doing
I'm not sure what those mean.
It's basically when you're killing monsters near your level, or you're playing the game in the map sometimes. So like, okay, so it depends on the areas that you're in, but in most areas
like the
in
yellow
the game,
portals?
Yeah, so those are bounty hunter portals, which has like, you know, some RNG, whichever ones they are. There's also red portals with an infernal wolf that you can kill.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
And there are runes that sometimes count for progress. Those spawn every 15 minutes as long as you're, you know, killing monsters pretty quickly on the map, and that gives you an EXP boost and a special bonus effect for several minutes.
Oh wait, we should be taking those then? Like we should be going into those?
Yeah, well, so timing the runes can be like a little bit more advanced as you get further into the game that you want to look into, but pretty much every time you see a rune, you want to grab it. It's a huge EXP boost, especially when your account is still pretty new and the amount of EXP boosters that you have access to is very limited. So percentage-wise, it's going to be a huge boost for you, yeah.
Oh no, not just runes. I meant like the
portals. Yeah. Comparatively, especially in the beginning as well. Comparatively, the portals are going to be really good. The thing is though that if you go into portals, you technically leave your map for a little bit, so you kind of leave the map open. So if you're playing during peak hours or in popular maps, it might not be as advisable to go into maps, because then someone else could like take the map while you're gone. So that could be
someone else can also be in my portal.
No, not in your portal, but they might join the map while you're not in there anymore, and they'd be like, "Hey, free map," and they can start training, and then you come back, and then they were there before.
That's what you meant.
Yeah, and then they were technically there before you because you were gone, and then so that's even though the EXP could be worth it, maybe the odds of losing your map aren't worth it. So then you kind of have to weigh that as you. But if it's not yeah, exactly. But if it's not a prime channel, which you know is a thing now, or if it's not like prime time gaming time, or it's not a very popular map, then and then they're typically pretty good, yeah.
I see.
So these are like events, yeah, and then sometimes elite monsters spawn, right, which are like bigger versions of the monsters that you're killing, and once
those are annoying.
They've been nerfed a lot and buffed and nerfed and buffed and nerfed. I think they're in a good spot right now, but they were at a time where if those things spawn in your map, sometimes you could just get like one tap by them. there were some of them that would hit you for like 25,000 HP or something if you got like a strong one at the higher
That is
levels.
insane.
Yeah, if you were not careful, you could die to them pretty easily. They were at a point where they were stronger than the elite bosses, which are the ones that the big like shiny black guys with the different colors and stuff. With the you have like a they're like shadowy dark
When you go like
mages,
the
right?
evacuation thing.
No, like the map changes, all the monsters disappear, and then there's 2 elites.
Yeah, the
and then
evacuation thing.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Oh, I don't know. It's like warning.
Yeah,
and then, like,
yeah,
it
exactly.
changes.
Yeah, and then all the monsters run, and then there's 2 elites, and then 1 boss, and then the boss takes 30 seconds before you can hit him. But you can kill the elites, or hopefully kill the elites in the meantime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah. It's
Really
they kind of
ruins my
introduced
mojo.
it to break up the monotony of training, but yeah, at a certain point it just becomes very annoying. Like I just want to continue and get my rates. You're destroying my gains right now.
For real.
Yeah. As you get really strong, you just blow them up, but yeah, it's still, usually it could take a little bit of time, like to redo some buffs or make sure everything's still going on, or take a sip of water. But they seem to coincide a lot with the runes as well. So then you're losing even more EXP as you get more min-maxy, that becomes more annoying. But yeah,
True.
but yeah, those are kind of like the map effects that can go on while you're training. How did we get to that point?
So we were talking about like my general structure of like my time, and and then we were talking about like grinding and like some details of that.
Yeah, so I think depending on what stage of the game you're in, like an hour and a half for all the dailies might be a little bit tight depending on where you're at. It might go a little bit higher than that. It might go up to 2 hours depending on how many of them you want to do. But
I think I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I think you always want to aim to not do more than 2 hours of dailies a day. Once you get over, there's probably some stuff that you can and probably should drop. So that's why I think that I opened this one, right? The exclamation mark dailies. I think this is a good one to start with. And then for yourself, prioritize which ones you like more and which ones are more important, because you want to leave room for things that you just like doing, even if they're not like super, objectively efficient, because that's how you prevent yourself from burning out, right? Having a little bit of say in what you're doing and enjoying your time while you're here. And then the only thing that can really upset whatever list you have is events. So if there's like event stores with items that are just really beneficial for you, then you have to move some other dailies around, or maybe eliminate them for a short duration, right? If you're doing something that's technically still good, but there comes an event that just requires you a half an hour day to just commit to that, and it's way better, then you might just move that other daily away for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, for a month, and then it can always come back in later.
So we were talking about enjoyment, and then you said there was like 2 other things, or maybe another thing. I'm not sure. You said first thing to consider is enjoyment, and then what would the other things be? Or did you forget? Because I honestly, we talked a lot. So
yeah, there were like three major things I want to get into. One of this, was it enjoyment? One was efficiency, right? And then
right. It was talking about efficiency.
Yeah,
There's a couple
and then what you enjoy because of getting burned down and stuff. What you enjoy definitely influences efficiency, because you could be objectively efficient that you want, but if it burns you out, then you just because you're not enjoying your time.
It's meaningless.
Yeah, for short term, but like you're sacrificing all of your possible long-term gains, and that seems to be something that you definitely don't want to do. So I guess what goes hand in hand with that is the time management and the time allocation. And again, depending on how structured you want to be at that personally, just blue blobs are a good point to start thinking about things. But it's like 3 times Ursus per run. Some people never run Ursus. Low level people can tend to start running Ursus because of the easy money, and then they can kind of get stuck in it, right? Same thing like I mentioned with those bosses. It'll be like, oh, this is 8 mil, 7 mil for these crystals. But then if you keep doing all of the small crumbs, you might be losing sight of the bigger picture and actually locking in too much time in dailies that should go into the other blob of grinding or maybe doing some fun stuff instead. And that sometimes it's better to make like 20 mil less a day from crystals, but gain 5% more EXP a day, right? That can be a really good trade. So it's good every now and then, and especially when events come out, is to take a step back, look at the event shop. What do I want to get? What do I need? And then look at the patch notes, see like, what do I need to do to get this? And then decide for yourself, do I want to sacrifice the time to do this? And a lot of times it'll be like, well, it depends on how long it'll take, right? So you'll have like to take like 2 or 3 days in the beginning of the event to like do it. and then see like, do I see myself doing this for like the next 4 to 6 weeks? And if the answer is no, just like cut your losses and just move on, because you'll get some currency here and there for just playing the game, and you might be able to buy a few things. But I see a lot of people is like, oh my god, it takes so long to max, and I'm maxing on 4 characters, and like they're completely like going super ham in the events. And then it's like the last week of the event is like, oh my god, I have so many coins that I don't even know what I want to buy with these. It's like, well, why did you spend all the time grabbing these coins then? You could have done so much other stuff in that same time and get like stuff that you actually wanted and needed, but you're falling into the trap of letting the game decide, hey, look at the shiny things you could get, and then you're kind of like falling into that, right? So I often say like, make sure that you're playing the game and that the game isn't playing you, because the game just wants you to spend more and more time, right? So if you let the game decide, you're never going to be done with anything. So make sure that you stay in control of like where you spend your time and how much you play. But I think in general that time allocation, distribution, and percentages is pretty accurate. I think you will be able to maintain that. And then the second thing you said is like priority within the things. We can go through like the entire list, but it basically comes down to what helps you progress in this stuff. So like Arcane Power is probably by far the most important. If you have like any time of the day, try to do your Arcane Symbol dailies if you do anything, because these are the most heavily time gated, and you can't just do like 10 hours of dailies and just make more progress. There's just a limit to how many things you can do per day. So you're limited in amount of days, not in amount of hours. So that would be the most important one, I would say.
What do you mean by you're not limit?
So you get like a certain amount of skills. You get a certain amount of quests per day, and if you complete them, you get your symbols. And then if you want to get more symbols, you just have to kill monsters, and you get at an abysmal rate. You can maybe get 1 or 2 every like hour or two. So it scales horribly. So getting the dailies done and getting those symbols is just so much more efficient than any other way of getting them that it doesn't make sense. That's something you definitely, or not definitely don't, but like if you want to do anything efficiently, then that's like by far the most important thing. Because you just have to do those dailies for a certain amount of time to be able to reach those later bosses if you want to. And if you don't do this, it is almost impossible to overcompensate that with other things if you don't hit those thresholds for those bosses that we talked about.
One thing I wanted to ask is, so when should I start making and funding my main?
Yeah, so with that in mind, like right, what I said with Arcane Power, the sooner you start, the better, because you'll start building the Arcane Power faster. Is your current Kana, is that from this tire burn or the one before this? You said you played for 2 days, right? Yeah,
I missed the other one.
Yeah, you missed the other one. Okay. Well, not okay, but that's the situation we're in.
Yeah, it's not okay. Should I delete it? Should I make my main?
Well, so that's the question. Is how you want to play the game. So I guess that's the second thing that we got to, is like the allocation with the time and everything. So depending on how far you go and how much you're grinding, you're going to get access to something called totems, right? Have you heard of these?
No.
Okay, so totems, basically you buy a coupon. The coupon turns into an equip. You equip the equip. It gives you a skill, and the skill allows you to like slam down a totem on the map, and it increases the spawn, the amount of monsters, and the speed with which they respawn. Increases both. So your rates just go up like a fuck ton. Like, it's insane. And one item lasts, you have it for 2 hours, and I think you have to replace it every 60 seconds or every 120, I think. Every 120 seconds.
Hold on. That was like really fast. Okay, recap. You buy a coupon. Coupon gives you for an equip.
Yep.
The equip gives you a skill, and the skill is a totem, and then the totem increases respawn and mob count.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And it does like the same intensity of the Kishin Shokan skill, which Kanas have.
Right.
But Kanas have it. The baseline now is 50% uptime, so you have to kind of like wiggle around and play around with Night Ghost Guide, which can trigger, which can increase the duration to try to keep it at 100% uptime. Whether the totem is guaranteed 100% uptime, but only for the 2 hours that you have a totem, and there's a limit to how many you can buy per month.
Could you provide an example of that? I didn't really understand that part, the Kana thing.
The Kana thing? Okay, so if you put Kishin down, it's basically the same effect as slamming the totem down. The totem will stay for 2 minutes, but the Kishin stays for 30 seconds. And then, but the Kishin cooldown is 60 seconds, but the totem has no cooldown, right? So you have 50% uptime versus 100%. So you're thinking like, oh, the totem is way better. The problem is the totem has a limited supply. So you can buy 15 from the reward shop every month, and there's 2 of them in the daily login rewards that you get throughout the month. So 17 in total.
17 total.
Yeah, if you're able to purchase all of that, 2 hours per totem, so that's 34 hours. Which is, for some people, is an insane amount, but for some people is way too little, right? So that's where the kana comes in, that's why a lot of people advise people to make a kana first to fund their whole account, is because depending on how much you're planning to play and how long you're planning to play, how much stretches of time you have, whether you need, short bursts of time. If you have like a busy schedule, you could do like 30 minutes here, 20 minutes there, then a kana has the flexibility of Kishin and can give you those rates all the time, versus a totem, you want to do that full 2-hour session to get max use out of it, and if you do anything less, you're losing efficiency there.
Okay, so it makes sense for me to make a kana first then.
I think so, yeah, because it seems by the amount of hours that you're willing to spend, you're going to be playing way more than the possible totems, and once you get used to the totems and you get used to the Kishin spawn, and then you have to do anything off totem, it's going to feel really bad. Like comparatively, you're just like killing monsters and you're just like sitting there just waiting for the monsters to respawn, and it's just boring. So it doesn't seem like a bad idea at all. No, for your situation. For other people who are like barely have like an hour or two today to play, and the amount of dailies is going to take up like 75% of their time, it makes no sense to start with a kana farmer, because all of your money and your resources are going to go into a kana, and once the kana comes online, that could have been a main that just was already completely online, right? Because it's like the same cost, because it's also a character, but then you would be able to do way more with that character, or you'd be able to do things you enjoy more with that character, right? So the kana is a very, very useful vessel. Also, there's probably a Kishin nerf coming on the way, so we don't quite know how big that's going to be. So that could kind of impact it, but we don't know 100%. Timing. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's usually. Kana is very much a nail that sticks out, so it will get hammered down from time to time.
I see.
Yeah.
And you said Kishin has a 30-second uptime, 60-second cooldown.
Yes.
When I use it, it's like up like all the time.
Yeah, so there's a skill that you have called...
I should be refreshing it every time?
If it's still on the map, you don't have to refresh it, right? Because that...
okay.
Yeah, if it's still on the map, it's still going, that means the effect is still going. And once you play more, you'll immediately notice once it's gone. Because the map will just suddenly be empty. You're like, wait, where are all the monsters? Like, you'll start getting a really... You probably already noticed it sometimes, like, hey, what's going on? Is my game lagging? It's like, no, Kishin, we're off. So then you press that button again.
Okay.
So there's a skill called... Some things will start falling into place once you're like, oh, that's what that was, yeah. So there's a skill called Night Ghost Guide, where I don't know if you play with the skill visibility on, but it's like a little ghost that shows up over the characters with like a crossed out face kind of thing. So when you hit a monster as a kana and you're not jumping and you don't kill it, there's a chance that the skill activates when you hit a monster. And whenever it activates, it extends the duration of your Kishin by a little bit.
That makes so much sense. My Kishin's up all the time because I never one-shot anything.
Exactly. So then once you get stronger, you might have to play the game a little bit differently, rotate the game the maps in a different way, so that you still clear properly, but that you don't one-tap everything easily, because then your Kishin efficiency will go down. So you'll have to be more cognizant of that at that point.
So also then that means maybe I should look towards different maps that might be at like a sweet spot. Maybe, but I guess that's more like min-maxing towards like the later stages of the game. Maybe, I'm not really sure. That's when you relegate your character more to being a farmer rather than just a character that's still progressing and finding its way to getting stronger in the game. Yeah. Usually it's once you get to like 220, 225-ish, you can start getting decent rates. Well, I say decent rates, like really good rates in the Lachaline area, the level 220 plus area, the City of Dreams, the purple one. There's some really good maps there, and based on... For farming?
Yeah, for farming, yeah. Like, unironically, I think people get like 800 to 900 mil an hour there just for basically very, very low effort, just hopping around the map, looting everything.
Awesome.
Kind of thing. Yeah. There's
big numbers go up.
Yeah, you like it? Yeah. Bank number go. Yeah. There's investment cost, of course. You want to make those equipments that I talked about, the utility items with the drop and the meso obtain, because basically the main thing is that a lot of the base numbers in the game are garbage because there's so many ways of increasing them, and we want to make sure that once they're max increased, that it's not completely broken. And
What did you talk about, utility items?
Yeah, so when I talk about utility items, it's basically items that give you, that essentially don't give you damage, but they give you something else. They give you some utility that still makes them valuable. So as you get further, you'll basically have bossing
item drop rate
equips.
and meso.
Yeah, item drop rate and meso are like the most important. But there's, for example, there's also hats with percentage cooldown reduction, for example. That would be like a utility item as well.
That sounds cool.
Mm-hmm.
That would be useful for some classes, I'd assume.
Yeah, there's some kanas who use it. I don't know if they do it as much, but like there is a certain time as well where you, once you get a weapon, you can put a lucid soul on it. Where basically, if you get a normal lucid soul, it basically becomes another summon that you can just plop down. And the combination of a cooldown hat and a special rune that lowers your cooldowns every now and then makes it possible to keep 100% uptime on the summon as well. So then you're basically just running around the map, plopping your summons down, standing in one spot and holding down Exorcist Charm and just killing everything around you, and then just running around the map looting and putting the summons back down kind of thing. And once you have that way you can cover even larger maps, right, without any dead spots. So that's that could be very valuable. But again, it's more relevant if you're like locking into that potential, because it can be very expensive. So you might not be at the amount of hours where it makes sense to do that for how much your rates are going up. This might be like people who are like doing 8 to 10 hours of just purely the kana farming outside of the dailies and the other stuff. You know, those people exist as well. So those people are min-maxing on on a different plane of existence than you or me.
Yep.
But it is a possibility to scale up to that, you know, at least at the current stage. But we'll have to see what they say with Kishin. If there's really like an insane Kishin gets crushed, it's still not a bad thing to have a kana farmer, because if basically everyone's spawn is going to be relegated to how many totems you have, kana is still going to be in a good spot, because it's still one of the best like farmers in the game, even if it loses Kishin. That's how good of a class it is. Plus, it has probably the best support in the entire game. And for endgame, it's probably top 5 in like damage dealers as well. So there's like, you can't really go that wrong. Hence, a lot of people will start with kanas.
And endgame damage.
Marksman and endgame damage, I think burst-wise, they've actually made up a lot of ground. They're definitely not like top 5, but I don't know if they're top 10. They might fall just outside of the top 10, basically. But they are getting reworked right now in KMS, so that could reposition them.
That's cool.
But we have to see. So tomorrow, KMS is getting the first version, the first exact numbers and everything of the test server for KMS for the rework. So we're all really excited to see how that's gonna pan out.
It's all of the Explorer classes, right? I think I've heard a little bit about
Yeah, they're redoing all the Explorers, and they're gonna have like 3 iterations.
That's crazy.
They're gonna have them in test server for 2 weeks, then rebalance them as needed, and then another week, and then they're gonna go into the live game with possibly some more tweaks on the 27th, I believe, of January. So yeah, and apparently the Cygnus Knights are after that, so that's the next big step after that.
What about the rest of like the archers?
Mm-hmm.
Where would they fall?
Yeah, so yeah, well, with the reworks coming, so Bowmaster seems to be getting a lot of reworks as well. Pathfinder's getting nothing, so it's kind of like not being treated as an explorer for this. I guess they're very much.
Oh, sorry, I meant in terms of damage.
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay.
It seems that Bowmaster is, I think, is a little bit more focused on trying to get more is more focused on survivability, and then there is a. Survivability translates to damage as well, right? Like being able to take more risks, not having to jump out of the way as much, you know. That can translate to getting more hits in, which can, exactly. That can translate to putting out more damage. Where Marksman's safety right now is being at being very far away and getting damage from being far away. So they kind of all fight in different ways. Like Wild Hunter has the jaguar, right, or the panther, whatever kind of animal it is, that they fight with, and then when you're mobbing, you're just sitting on it, and like you're just shooting. You're shooting your crossbow, and the panther is shooting some bullets, and it's pretty lazy. And you have some summons that you can put down, but that's pretty much it. And then when you're bossing, you're basically fighting off of the jaguar, and you're controlling it to do attacks. You're doing attacks yourself, and you're doing like combo attacks with it and like solo attacks. So it's very different versus mobbing versus bossing.
In terms of bossing, then, like, where did the archers lie in like damage?
The archers.
Like, which one's the best? like top down.
Compared to each other or compared to the other classes?
Oh, like everything, yeah, as a whole.
Because the thing is that all of the balancing is done in Korea, right? And most of the archers have what's called hurricane classes, where you hold down the button and it's got a maximum amount of attacks that can come out, regardless of your attack speed. And what GMS has is we can go 2 attack speeds higher than KMS in GMS. So since the balance is done in KMS, the classes who mainly rely on hurricane classes tend to kind of get caught up by all the other classes comparatively.
Which are Wind Archer and Bowmaster?
Well, pretty much everyone. So like, so not Marksman. Marksman gets on the good side of that.
Snipe.
Yeah, because we have Snipe, and well, I say we because I have a 250 Marksman as well. You've got your cartridges and stuff. But like, yeah, so it's Bowmaster, Wind Archer. It's basically like a super empowered shot. Like it shoots like 3 really big arrows that just like blow up your.
That sounds sick.
Yeah. And then you have Split Shot as well, which creates like a double hit effect and a cone behind the boss. So you combine those.
I know.
Yeah, you combine those two, and it's like, it's just like numbers go better. Yeah, but it's like really short lived. But it's like a lot of stuff going on for that. But so like it's Wild Hunters, Bowmasters, Mercedes to an extent, Wind Archers. We don't have that many archers. Whatever. I think there's only like 7 archers in total,
like
right?
Kane?
Kane is an archer,
is
yeah.
Kane like one?
No, Kane is not a hurricane.
Pathfinder?
They have like 1 or 2 hurricane skills, and that's it. And Pathfinder has a macro that's kind of limited to how many attacks you can do. Like if you hold down the macro at a certain point, I think it's like at 4 attack speed or higher, the amount of attacks per minute kind of stay exactly the same. So yeah, Bowmaster has the benefit of the survivability, so they have these like lifesteal arrows. So if you have those and you're constantly streaming attack, you can get hit by a whole lot of stuff, but your HP just like immediately replenishes again because you're just lifestealing the whole way through.
Honestly, this isn't really swaying much. I'm probably just gonna play Marksman.
Yeah, I mean, Split Shot is really cool. It's only 50% uptime, but for that 50%, I think it's worth it. It's really fun. And you can find maps, like symmetrical maps with like a free platform in the middle. And you just like point left, shoot, point right, shoot, point left, shoot, and everything's just like and a cone behind it just explodes.
Yeah, there was one on Yum Yum Island, I think. That was like that.
Probably Yum Yum has that. Yeah, and Arcana, the lower map, has one. You just like point left, point right, point left, and everything just yeah. That's really cool. And then during the downtime, you just jump around and loot, and you know you can summon a big bird, and you can shoot a big bolt through the map. And
is their bossing damage okay as well?
I think their bossing damage is okay. Yeah, Sharp Eyes is a very valuable tool as well. People have the decent skills at 5th job, so they'll have like decent Sharp Eyes, but regular Sharp Eyes is about twice as good as decent, so they'll still want that skill. It's still an extra 7% critical damage and 10% critical rate, so that's still something that parties would like to have. But other than that, they also fixed the puppet, right? So you have like an arrow that you can put down as like a decoy, and that is very helpful for solo bossing, except against Akechi, because that guy does not like puppets. He will just, that's non-KMS content, so don't puppet Akechi, chat. He'll just instantly start like FMA binding you and doing like one shots that he's not supposed to be able to do. Is he like completely goes haywire. Yeah,
that's crazy.
But I think Marksman is a solid class. It is definitely not like a top 5 at anything individually, but I think it's a fun class, and if that's like a style that you enjoy, I think you'll have a good time. Yeah. Cool. And then the rework hopefully just only makes it even better. I won't
be like useless.
No, you won't be weak or useless. No.
Okay, cool.
It'll be hard. I think for the longest time, Marksman had like a little bit of a weird thing going on where the split shot would show like different numbers than how much damage you're actually doing, or if you're doing like a battle analysis where you can kind of like test how much are certain skills hitting, how many times are they hitting, where's my damage coming from, right? So you can kind of like use it to optimize your damage and kind of gauge with your party members, like, do we have enough damage to kill the boss? It would give you like weird results that wouldn't actually be super accurate. So Marksman has had some weird, because a lot of times so Marksman is one of those classes where the range looks very low, but your damage output is very high, because all of it is like on hit effects, is based on your IED, and your final damage and all of that was very much based on how far you are from your target. So you know, the range doesn't know how far you are from your target. The game knows it as soon as you hit it, and then the multiplications are done. So
right, because that's their 4th job passive skills. It's like you have to be like at maximum distance for like all of your.
Yeah, I think it starts in second or third job, and then it gets empowered in fourth job. Yeah, and then the maximum bonus increases. So they changed it a little bit. They made a bunch of it more passive, and then not as much dependent on how far you are. Plus, the maximum distance I think was reduced a little bit. But it seems like they're completely getting rid of that with the current revamp. So we'll see.
Oh yeah,
the
I've
details
heard
tomorrow.
that too.
Yeah. Because now we even have like a measuring stick that you could use, so you could like see how far you are from your target to see if you have like max
right now?
Max distance? Yeah, you can literally just like measure your EP in game. Like you just throw that thing out and you can like see the distance.
Wait, how can I do that?
As a marksman? Only as a marksman you can do it because the distance is important.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like a first job skill, I think.
You can like do it.
Yeah, it just throws out like a ruler in front of you and you can like see how far you are from your target if you're hitting max damage. Yeah. I used it like once or twice when it came out and then just never again because I mean I'm just used to staying very far away. Once you get used to how big the hitboxes of bosses are and how far they can hit, as a marksman you kind of learn to stay just out of that range and just snipe them from afar.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of learning and trial and error, or just doing the boss, I guess.
In general, that's for all classes. You have to learn like what can I immune. There's a thing called knockback and knockdown, right? Is it like, do I just get a small tick, just get a small hit, and do I just get a small bump, or do you literally get like slapped across the map? That's something you want to be way more careful for.
What is that? What is? Yeah, Ursus slaps me across the map, dude.
Yeah. So Ursus is another level. So basically, there's 3 levels. There's knockback, knockdown, and then there's just like, I don't give a fuck about anything you have. I'm just gonna move you.
He just blows me up.
Yeah. So. Bosses like Ursus basically just bypass everything, like they don't give a fuck, just because it's like raid content, and but that's very rare. So usually knockback is like more of the early bosses where basically, or like just regular monsters, if you bump into them, you actually get moved back. That's basically that can only happen if you have a knockback check and you fail the knockback check, basically based on your percentage. So that's why Link skills and Legion, you have the Mihail in there, because the Mihail Link skill is a skill that will exclamation mark Mihail is not what I was going for. That basically gives you 100% knockback resistance, so you can walk into regular monsters, you can walk into bosses and stuff, and you won't get knocked back. You won't lose momentum, you will just be able to walk in a straight line as if you didn't get hit. You'll take damage, but you'll just move like normal.
Oh yeah, we can get into this. So I guess adding...
well, just to explain, like knockdown is a step... so that's knockback, and then knockdown is a harder one, where basically, even if you have 100% knockback resistance, that will still move you. But some characters do have, or some skills have knockdown resistance, so you'll want to either save those for special occasions, or use them as like a form of utility and survivability in boss fights. But it's only bosses, like regular monsters don't do that. Yeah.
Right. And so, okay, so I guess stepping outside of classes now, I guess.
Did you feel like the Archer question was adequately answered? I guess because don't want to like move on if you still had questions there.
No, yeah, no.
Because it feels like you're pretty
much...
Yeah, I think Marksman is going to be a good fit now.
Yeah, and so I guess the original question that I asked was what was it? It was like
allocating the time, like way back.
My main.
Yeah.
When should I start my main? So I guess going into more detail is also I want to also figure out like, so what would be like the smoothest like progression for me to get started funding my main and starting it? You said it would be as soon as possible, but it also depends on the time allocation and stuff.
Yeah, I would say as soon as possible, but like rare resources.
I should like do like links first, pretty much. Like which ones should I get out of the way first?
Sure.
Or should I just do my main? Like, I don't know. Like I don't know.
So this goes back into like the time allocation. I think in the beginning you're not gonna have nearly as many dailies, and I think you want to take some of the time out of the dailies and maybe out of the do whatever to dedicate that time to Legion. I think it's always the best thing to do a little bit of Legion every day, a little bit of dailies every day, a little bit of just fucking around every day, and then whatever you think is necessary to progress and to reach what you personally want to reach. Just like you don't want to go 100% in one source of damage and then have to like wildly overcompensate it with something else. I think you also don't want to go 100% on your main and 0% on your Legion. For some people that works. They'll wait for an event that's really good to level low-level characters, and then they'll go like 95% on working on their Legion, and the rest of the 5% is just like dailies on their main. And then when that's over, they just don't do anything for Legion until the next one. If that works for you, then that's fine. But what I see most people doing is just like neglecting Legion for the longest time, then feeling really weak on their main, then kind of just only doing dailies on their main, and then just working way too much on Legion, and like I fucking hate Legion, and then going back like bouncing around like that. If you just like slow and steady, the main thing with Legion is that there's huge power in numbers. So the main thing is you want to increase the amount of levels in your Legion, and we have direct access to being able to buy extra character slots with Mesos in Reboot, so you can upscale the amount of characters in your account very quickly. And every new character that you make, as soon as you hit level 60, their levels count for your Legion. So, and level 70 is when you get the first level link skill. So like level 70 is a pretty good sweet spot. Counts for Legion, and you get the level 1 link. And with every level 1 link you get something that can link to another character, and you get a Legion buff, so the next character gets a little bit stronger. And basically what you're just trying to do is build a snowball that you can eventually just roll down the hill and the character just levels itself up.
So if I were to like, I'm probably going to 50-50 my time on Link and main. In terms of like just like leveling or like grinding, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
and events can influence that, right? If there is an event that's like way better to level your main, then you just do a little bit less Legion then. And if it's way better for Legion, then you do a little bit less of your main, which is whatever. As long as you're flexible in that, or if you want to be, right, then you can just jump into whatever gives you the best rates at that time.
So now I'm going to move on to more specifics. It's okay. So what do you think? Which ones should I knock out first, or like what should I? Which links and legions should I knock out right now and overall? I guess if I'm going to main Marksman.
Sure. So here are all the information, the details are on the bottom, right? Like what the ranks are and what all the colors mean, just as like feedback. Basically, I've taken a look at this. So basically, I've organized in the first row, or the first 2 rows, I guess, the stats that I think in order of importance, and then the Legion and the Link skills is in the same grid because they're both account value, right? Sometimes people look at like what's the best Link skill. It's like, well, if the Link skill is a little bit better, but the buff, the Legion buff is like garbage, then I don't think that's a high priority. I think it's a little bit lower priority. If something is like number 2 on both of the lists, it's way more value to level it faster, I think. So that's why I've put them on the same grid. But basically, based on the stats that I've seen, and I've moved them a little bit around recently, the yellow ones are just like, those are the solid ones that if you have all the yellow ones, then your every new character you make is going to be is going to level way faster. So that's like the first, that's already like 22 characters. So that's not like, you could do that in a week, of course, if you go like super hard, you make like 3 level 70s a day, boom, you're done in a week, right? But these are like the most important ones. And then it gets a little bit more niche with the green ones. So like knockback immunity, not every character needs that. Marksman is one that does want it. And buff duration will come from, will not be as important for everyone. So that's a possible one to skip. And then skill cooldown reduction is already part of the Mercedes, which is like way high on the list. So then pretty much all the green ones
is pretty good for Marksman, right? Because you got split shot uptime, maybe.
Yeah. So buff duration does not work on hyperstats or 5th job skills.
Oh, okay. That is sucky.
Yeah. It's basically cool. if they did. Then everyone's meta would be to always try to min-max and get as much buff duration as possible. And basically they would have to scale all of the 5th job skills down to the uptime that they would get. It would be kind of like a shit show. Yeah. It's same thing with, there's also like invulnerability that's called percentage chance to skip cooldown. Some skills are just immune to that because it would be too difficult to balance. And then it would be too RNG for a playstyle, because you can only go up to like 20% chance to skip a cooldown. And then if you hit it like 3 times in a row, you're a god. And if you don't hit it, then you're doing shit damage, right? That makes it too volatile. So some skills just aren't affected by that, including, again, like hypers and 5th job skills are not affected by that. Although, wait, are hypers? Guys, percentage chance to skip cooldown, that works on hypers, right? But not on 5th jobs? I don't know. Sometimes it's a but skill cooldown reduction, that works on everything, but there's almost no sources of that. It's just basically just Mercedes and some built-in kits of classes. Nope? Okay, it doesn't work on hypers, yeah. So that's why the Mercedes one is really good, because it's one of the only ones that also works on hypers and 5th jobs. So that's kind of nice. It increases your uptime.
Right. So how far are we into the session right now?
We are roughly an hour and 20 minutes in.
Okay. Or would you be willing to go like 30, 40 minutes more? Or
you know, I typically always already do that, so I feel unfair if I wouldn't.
Okay.
Well, so
okay, cool.
So to like tie it back, this is basically because it can all be tied back into the progression grid, right? So this is basically just the Legion level, you know, the row number 14 is basically this part of progressing through the game. So it can basically always be tied back to this, and from this you can always be tied back with extra information to one of the commands.
Right. This is very important. This thingy, this grid.
Yeah, I'm really proud of this because it's also, and I have redone it like over time a little bit, right? Like change the definitions, change the numbers around, change the levels around when the level cap went up, you know. And it's not always self-evident, and sometimes you need to tweak it a little bit here and there. But this and the dailies together, these two, I think are a very good skeleton to be like, okay, like this is a good base, you know, home base to start from. And then, you know, if you're like, okay, this daily's on the list, but I don't really think it's that important for my play, and I don't really like it, so I'm going to skip this one. This event is cool. I'm going to do this one instead. As long as you're not going to be forgetting anything super important, at least. That's the main thing.
So right now, taking into the fact that I'm terror burning my Kana, I think my goal right now is that I'm trying to get it to a certain level so that it can start farming.
Yeah, the main thing for the because Terror Burn has a lot of value all the way up until 220, so I would try to definitely get that one to 220 and to be able to redeem all the rewards on it. That would be at least the goal for that character, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's the goal for that character. And then on my main, right now I'm pretty much only spending my time on Kana just to finish the Terror Burning.
Yeah.
And then I think after that I'm going to start splitting time between main and Link/Legion. Like half and half, pretty much.
Sure.
Unless you set
whatever you feel like on a day. Yeah.
Events. Yeah. Or whatever I feel like. Yeah.
Events.
Sometimes I'll probably feel like
so
one or the other.
Yeah. So for Links and Legion, like efficiency wise, I would say like step 1 is just make all the characters to level 70. You know, just like literally one of each. And then once you have everything all 70, yeah, just all of the characters. And if you find
you don't think that like certain characters might be better at Link 2 first, or
possibly, but it's going to be so fast. So you want to get the
okay.
You can go up to 40 characters. I'll meet you there because only the 40 highest level characters will count towards your Legion level. So you can do like you know 1 through 40 on the list, for example. Like purely like efficiency point.
Wait, is the list numbered in like what is most important?
Yeah, basically, yeah, pretty much. Because I've
organized. What it is?
Well, because I've organized the stats on the top, right? So I've gone. If you look at the boxes, you'll see they'll go from the first column to the second to the third to the fourth. And that's how they are organized. So it's basically a priority list for what is most.
Okay.
And also going from early to late, because some things are, you know, when you look at bossing, and you just select the blue, like the blue area, right? When it comes to like more bossing, then you can see what is most important for bossing, and then what comes into play there, or damage to bosses. Yeah. So that's like the general priority. So if you make like 1 through, well, it starts with 3, right? So all the way 1 through 42 or something, then you have everything until the Cygnus Knights. You have all of those at level 70. You've got like a great Legion already. Plus you got 40 characters. All at level 70, and you have a few characters higher, you'll have 3k Legion at that point. 3k Legion, you get to expand your grid, you get to put 5 extra characters on the board, and you start getting quite a decent amount of stat from your board. And then you just start back at the top. You get them all to 100 or to 120, you know, if you think they're that important. If you get them all to 100, that's when you can access Zakum, right? Daily boss, very easy to get a lot of experience. Just kill the arms. They give a lot of EXP. Don't kill the boss. If you kill the body too quickly, once you get strong enough, the arms will just wither and you won't get the armor experience. So make sure you don't kill too quickly. You got to wait like, you know, count like 2 Mississippi or something so that you can damage the actual arms. And that's a very good one because your character won't need any funding. You could just go in, have fourth job. Maybe you need some books to level up a few skills, right? The mastery books. But other than that, you're just basically you log in, kill Zakum, log out. And you can choose I'm going to do 2 characters today. I'm going to do 20 characters today, whatever you want to do. But you can slowly get them up to 140 like that. 120 is, of course, really good. Then you have the level 2 link skills. Again, you're going to get a power spike. All of them are going to get a little bit faster. And then 140 is a really good spot because then you get another tier for the Legion at that point. So all of the Legion memberships are going to go up. Plus, if you have 40 140s and a few characters higher level because of Terror Burns, because of your main, because of your Kana, whatever, you're going to get really close to 6k Legion at that point. And that's when you have access to the full grid. And 5.5 is where you put another 5 characters on a board instead of 1. So once you're at that point, you're basically already here. And you're basically home free to level 250 for your main. And your Legion is already going to be carrying a lot of the...
Can you Terror Burn a character that you already have?
You can make the same class, but Terror Burn is only on character creation, in the window. There's sometimes an exception, and that's called a Burninator, Mega Burninator, or Terror Burninator. That's an item that you can get, and you can pick that on an item on a character that already exists. Double click there and give it the burning effect. But at that point, you'll only get the level and get 3 levels instead of 1 effect, but not the other Terra burning events where you get the boxes with the equips and all that. That's a separate event.
Yeah. So my question, I guess more specifically now is, so right now after I am done Terra burning my Kana to level 220, how should I be looking to build my main? And what should the general building of my main look like after that point?
So it would be the same as Kana, but slower initially, right? Because you're you'll have to overcome more obstacles to get to the same gear, and you'll take more time to get the same levels, right? That's that's all kind of self-evident, I guess. But the list of the dailies and your level being the indicator, that all stays the same. So you can go by the same list of ! dailies, and you can aim towards the same goals as are here in the numbers, but you won't stop where the Kana stops, because the Kana is going to be one that generates you income. So once the Kana is in a good spot and you can start generating that income, you want to invest nothing anymore into that character. You want to start defunding it, right? You want to start divesting from it, because all of that is going to have to start going to your Marksman. So you're temporarily going to 100% commit to the Kana so it can come online, and then once it's online, it's basically 0%. You might do dailies for a little bit to build up your symbols a bit more, to get a bit more stat and get the Arcane Power bonus. But once you're in a good spot there, you basically just want to go full and start sending it on the Marksman. Because
how do I know when I'm in a good spot?
You have to specifically ask for some Kanas to see what kind of rates do they roughly get, and then kind of see if you're super far away from that, or if you're actually pretty close, and if that's something that you feel, if you feel like you have to hit every monster 3 times and you're getting 200 mil an hour, and other people are saying that they're getting 900, you always want to round down what other people are getting, not get to be oh, they get 900, so they mean 900 mil exactly every single time, all the time. People round up, just to dick measure and stuff.
Yeah, they flex.
Yeah, exactly. Or they'll say oh, I got this much, and then they have a 6-minute BA where they have a rune and all that other stuff on it. It's okay, that's not reproducible. That you can't scale that up. That's not. You're lying to yourself and to other people. I'm not gonna look at this. So. But the main thing will be, I think you want to get the Kana around. I think what is it around 500 Arcane Power at least. I think 540, because that's the same bonus damage that you would need on Lucid. But basically, whatever map you're in, I think you go to the if I don't remember, I think it's the alleyway maps here. They're pretty low. They only need 190. Oh, cool. So plus 95. So you'd be if you're at 300 Arcane Power, you're already good. You're talking about side path. You're talking about Arcana already. But I think initially you can already start getting really good rates over here. So at least 300, and then slowly build from there your Arcane Power. And stat-wise, I'm not 100% sure, but the main thing, and we haven't really touched on this at all yet, is going to be your boost nodes. That's where a lot of your damage is going to come from.
What about my gear for Kana? What should it be? Is it okay with CRA gear, or should I look for Absolab or whatever?
for if you're gonna stay on Lakaline, AC rated gear is fine. Absolab is like if you want to go to Arcana, you're gonna like rush into Arcana. Then you probably also want to like look into Abzo, not because you need it, but because the base stats are so good that it just makes it easier to get to the funding levels with less money.
Should I be looking into the whatever you said, the thingy? What did you say again? Arcane thing? Or...
Oh, sorry, the thingy, the Arcane Power. No,
sorry,
the notes.
No, wait. No, the map that you said, like the map that I'm looking to get into, not.
Oh, someone said like side path and Arcana. Yeah. That's like more of a lazy map, but that's also going to have way more competition. And because it's higher level map, people are staying there longer, so it's more of a bottleneck. I think you're fine. It's a lot easier getting a map at Lakaline first, and you can already start getting really, really good rates there. And it'll also give you a little bit of time to see, am I going to keep playing the same amount of time? Am I going to keep my time distribution per character the same? Or am I totally okay with the rates I'm making on my Marksman? And am I just going to scale up the Marksman and kind of leave the Kana on the side for like side events? Because, you know...
Do you think I should just get it to Lachlan and then just full send my Marksman?
Yeah. Once your character comes online in Lashland, you can like... Well, you already want to be like leveling the Marksman, but you're going to be like accelerating the growth of the Marksman by a substantial margin at that point, yeah.
Wait, so right now I should still be spending some time on my Marksman as well? Because right now I'm just spending all my time on the Kana.
Yeah, you just want to start up the Marksman and basically have it like as a Legion Mule now, kind of, right? But you'll spend more time on it. Because the main thing is you want to get to 200, you want to get to the areas so you can start doing the daily, so you can start building your Arcane Power because of the time gate. Same thing with the Kana, same thing with the Marksman. That's why I said in the beginning it's possible that you're going to have to do more dailies for a while, because you're gonna have to like double them up as your Kana still building up, and then once your
like
Kana,
on the Kana and on the Marksman.
Exactly, yeah. And if you know someone else who's also doing it, you can like exchange, right? Like they can help you with the Kana, you can Kishin them. They maybe want to do it on a Kana as well, and they do it, and you do it on the Marksman, and you help each other out, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So I think my general idea of what I'm going to do is I'm going to split time between my Kana and my main until my Kana is at a good spot.
Yeah, what is a good spot, right? Yeah, so it would be and that's why I was also asking like about the guild, because if you have other people doing similar things, you can kind of like ping with them, be like, hey, what kind of rates are you getting? Like, what kind of stats do you have? I don't know if anyone in chat knows like how strong, if you're going to be farming in Lakaline, like what kind of stats are you looking for? I imagine you want your boost nodes to be like at least like over level 20, right? Like level 25 to 30, and then like what, like 400 arcane power and like 16k stat or something, or probably lower, like 14 or something. 10 to 12. What kind of boost nodes are you at that point? Like 20, 25? Is that good enough? 20. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So I mean, it fits within what I've written down here, but of course, it's kind of hard to is like interpolate. What is the like? Just because you're 215 doesn't mean you're exactly like 1/8 away from the numbers, right? So it's, for me, it's like easy to interpret this number on the stage to kind of mean like, what does it mean if you're like halfway through?
So a good spot would be sort of like in like the mid area.
Yeah. Well, because that's what you're using the level as indicator, right? So you're going at least 220, 225-ish probably, right?
Right.
So that puts you like not quite halfway, a little bit on the first half of mid. So then you look down at the numbers and you're going towards the bigger number, but you're going to be closer to the beginning as much as possible, because we're not trying to overfund. So it seems that DJ Coca-Cola said like level 12, maybe level 12 to 15 on the boost nodes. Because yeah, that makes a huge jump, right? From the beginning to the end of the game. You're basically going from having virtually nothing to being almost done. And then stat-wise, like 10 to 12k. And then, you know, the Arcane Power just slowly building up, at least the map requirements, so at least 300, but you're probably going to be going up beyond that, because Arcane Power, if you level up the symbols, also gives you stat, so that goes like hand in hand. So it's basically like free stat for doing your dailies. Yeah, yeah.
Like enhancing the orbs or whatever.
Yeah, because we mentioned Arcane Power before as like one of the guild buffs as well, but that one just purely gives you the Arcane Power stat. It doesn't give you the main stat with it. That's purely for the calculations. That's why I wanted to mention that. Yeah.
Sounds like a general game plan. Okay, and then I guess, and then after that point, I guess it would be splitting time between funding, like farming on my Kana and leveling up a Link, and also leveling up my main.
Yeah, so that will kind of like rely on totems, right? It's like, do you feel like doing a 2-hour totem and grinding on my main? Then throw that one out there. Do you want to do even more, but not an extra totem, or you don't have an extra totem, or you don't want to do an extra 2 hours, or you need like a flexible session? You throw in the Kana, or you do the other ones. Yeah.
I guess I'd be juggling like 3 of those. I guess. Like
or you could say like, I don't feel like doing any Legion today, fuck it, and then tomorrow I'm gonna do like 20 characters Zakum, like whatever, as long as you make some gradual progress, because it's just there's so much power in numbers for Legion, and during a lot of my sessions, I don't know if you've seen any of the other ones, but a lot of times people will undervalue like, oh, I haven't done that much Legion yet because they're just leveling so slow. And it's like, okay, but how long does it take you to make a level 60 or level 70? And they're like, oh, it's not that long. It's like half an hour. It's like, would you be able to do that every day? And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. It's like, okay, well, if you do that every day for just a month, you gain 2k Legion. And they're like, oh, shit, actually, that's a lot. Right? So you're going to be playing anyway. So dedicate a little bit of time to that, and you'll see massive results. In like 1 month and 2 months and 3 months, you see a huge result. Yeah.
The Link Legion stuff. You said I can do like, you said I can do like Zac at like level 7?
100. So 60 is just like pre-quests and some in the beginning it'll be some theme dungeons, and then after a while, the further you go, the more you'll have access to other resources in the game, and that links to the Legion, to the dailies as well. So the main reason we're doing this, so the main reason Legion is so important is because we don't have trade, right? And you want to be able to make your main character stronger, and the way that you do that is by having a big Legion. But how do you get a big Legion? It's by having strong characters. But how do your characters get strong? By funding them. But we don't have trade, so we can't make gear to trade them. So what can we trade? All the stats from Legion and all the stats from your links. That's freely transferable. So that's basically how we fund the characters to get stronger, to help fund your main, basically. So that's kind of like the cycle we're trying to do. So there are other things that we can trade, so we want to make sure to use those as well. So in the past it was familiars, we can't use that as much anymore, so we're not going to go too deep into that. But there's things like Monster Park potions are very important, and the further you go, also Legion buffs that you can buy in the Legion store with the Legion coins. Those are important. But it takes a while Monster Park potions can come online very quickly, but you will be playing much more than you have access to them in the beginning. And Legion coins takes a while to come online, because Legion coins are also shared with paying to get to a higher rank, so you can get more characters on a board, so you can get more Legion coins. So in the beginning, it's all just going to be reinvested into upgrading your board. And then once the next upgrade for the board is going to take longer, then you'll start being able to use the Legion coins on the Kana, to use wealth coupons, so you can increase the amount of meso you get from every bag. And you'll be able to use it for EXP coupons to make sure that when your Marksman is training, that you can get more experience if you aren't covered by experience coupons from other sources.
But, okay, that makes sense. And then, more specifically, I guess aside from that, building my main, I'm wondering, like, what is everything I should be doing to build that main in terms of, so outside of Link and Legion, in terms of like how should I be progressing in gear and like everything else, like, because I don't really know much about familiars, and you'd be doing arcane dailies, and I guess you'd be doing other dailies maybe, I don't really know.
Yeah, so it's the same list of dailies basically and weeklies. But depending on the final goal of the character, some might be a higher priority than for the Kana. So let's say that one of the weeklies you do to get backups for a ring, for endgame, once you want to Star Force past 17 stars and it can start blowing up. Well, on a Kana, you're probably not going to do that for very long, because once you hit your mark and you can start farming, you know, you're just like good for a while. And if you decide later you want to go to another area, you want to get more resources, you want to get familiar cards, you want to get more droplets, etc., then you can like start that up on the Kana, and that'll just be like a new project for that character. But for your main, who's got like the focus on, you know, sky's the limit basically, just going all the way, you don't really cut any of those corners unless you get super lucky and you don't need to go all the way on them. So if RNG is in your favor. But in general, you start with the same list of dailies and that you start doing. And yeah, we can go over everything, but basically it goes here by value is like what drops from which bosses. And this kind of dictates on, and again, like all of the important pieces of progression of gear are also all on here. So in general, if you're starting with a regular character in the beginning, you're just going to wear shit gear, whatever drops from the bosses near your level. You're going to get into pencil gear pretty quickly, level 140. That can be decently strong. It's got a nice set bonus. You keep that for a while. Weapon-wise, you want to do the Commercy stuff. Commercy must be on here somewhere. Commercy PQ, so you can get the Sweetwater weapon, level 160. That one is way better than anything you can get at the same time. So that's going to be a huge piece for progress. And again, it's going to depend on if you're going to be in a guild and maybe get carried, or you're going to do a party with your friends, or you're going to do solo all the way. That'll, especially in the beginning, very heavily determine how much funding you need. If you're going to get carried, you need nothing. If you're going to go with your friends, yeah, if you're going to go with your friends, basically, if you get everything done.
I think someone's carrying us in CRA, so I think I'd go straight to CRA on my main.
Yeah, that means that so if you get some nice penciler stuff, you can use that as tools to transfer hammer, so you can reduce cost of upgrading your CRA if you find anything. But most likely you're just going to like have some shitty penciler on with like 3% stat and like 12 stars or something, and then immediately just move into CRA then. That means that Sweetwater weapon is probably also not as important, because if you have the full set bonus from CRA, then that kind of overpowers and the need to get a Sweetwater weapon anyway. You'll do the commercy stuff anyway later to get the accessories, the level 160 accessories set up, but it won't be as high of a priority to start up that daily, basically.
And how do I gear Marksman, I guess? Like
most classes are like geared the exact same. So
they're the exact same.
So the difference is like what kind of secondary you get, for example, but you get the secondary from the same source. Like you get it from Princess No, but Princess No just drops emblems, and then you double click the emblems, and then you can choose which which secondary you want. But pretty much all the classes want that one. But then you have exclamation mark secondaries, command in my channel, and that'll say for every single class like what is the best in slot secondary, and if it's not or that has the Princess No secondaries and all the stats, and if that one is not best in slot, it has a mentioned it's like sub weapons, secondary weapons. It goes by a few different names, but yeah, so the secondary weapon, the weapon, and the emblem, or we call it weapon secondary emblem, WSE, you'll see that mentioned. Those are the three most important pieces, because if you have those pieces properly upgraded in the beginning, they will carry your entire character basically. So if you like your WSE is on point, and then you work on Arcane Power, you work on symbols, you work on dailies, and all the other items are just not absolute garbage, but they're pretty bad, you can kill everything around your level. And then you can move from that phase when you got like CRA, and when you're maybe working towards Absolab stuff, but you're basically just filling in the slots. You're getting boss accessory, boss accessory set basically from all of the bosses. Again, those are all on the list. Those are all in the dailies if you're following them. And you combine that with the CRA pieces.
Well, like what potential lines should I be going for, or is that like dependent on certain things?
Yeah,
should
so
I be going for item, or just pure in terms of pure damage for my main?
If you're pure damage for your main, you're just looking for stat basically on everything, and then for WSE, you're looking for percentage attack. It's essentially what it is.
Should I be looking for pure damage, or should I be balancing damage and like utility, like item drop rate or meso gain?
So in the beginning, that's not going to be as important. You're mainly going to throw your money at your Kana to go online and to start making the meso there. And the main thing for your the way I play is I get to drop in a meso on the characters that I'm playing because I don't do the Kana route. But that means that the characters need to be stronger to be able to kill with that utility gear on and not get any damage from those pieces, essentially.
I'm probably the Connor rat then, right? So I'm probably just doing pure damage.
Yeah, so that means that you could probably keep most pieces just like epic with 6% that you can roll very easily with the cold cubes, and then just keep them epic. And then WSE wants to always be like 1 or even 2 ranks higher than all the other pieces. You want to keep it, get it to you.
What is WSE?
Weapon, secondary, and emblem.
Oh.
So that's like, so that's this one, this one, and this one. Those are just the most important because they get percentage attack, percentage magic attack, and then they can all 3 also get IED percentage on it, and the weapon and the secondary can also get boss percentage, boss damage percentage. And these stats are just so much more impactful because of the accessibility that they have, right?
Marksmen have secondaries?
Yeah, you have, I think it's called a, no, it's not called a whisper shot, a thimble I think it's called.
Okay.
It's basically like one of those special gloves that you use for archery. So it looks like a
should I be getting those too? I guess.
Yeah, so that's a bit tricky because this comes into play like what is the average chance of tearing up? What's the average cost of rolling? How many different types of, you know, how many different outcomes are there in potential? So this is kind of when calculators come into play, and you can use calculators to kind of gauge like how expensive is the next upgrade going to be. But I think if your WSE is epic and everything else is rare, you're good. Once you get more epic other stuff, it makes sense to get your WSE up to unique. And you only want to get it up to a tier if you can roll something good in that tier, right? Otherwise, it's not worth your investment because tiering up comparatively early on is very expensive compared to just re-rolling a bunch of times. But the main thing is going to be...
WSE first.
Yes, always first. Just because of their impact. Like 6% attack line in the beginning on a weapon can be the same as like 6% lines on your equips, for example, or the same as like 3% line. It's just it scales like way harder. So
what about wait, sorry.
Yeah.
So you said the lines on the WSC is more than your weapon for in terms of attack?
We're doing weapon. Weapon is W, right? In WSC.
Oh, weapon W. Okay. So it's weapon. Okay.
Yeah, weapon W, secondary S, and the E stands for emblem. So that's people abbreviate it because that's like the holy trinity of your damage early on.
So you mainly want attack percent on weapon?
Yeah, or magic attack percent if you're a mage. But that's like, you know, everything comes down to balancing and how much you can get of it, right? If regular equips could get percentage attack, then maybe getting percentage stat on your weapon would be better, right? It just comes down to how much of it is accessible. And again, all of that is like accounted for and calculated for in the progression grid, like what makes sense to aim for, right? But on weapon, secondary, and emblem, like the percentage attack lines are just really, really good. And for later on, even for Legion, if you're trying to like make the jump from level 140 to 200, if you want to go for an 8k Legion, that's also where you're going to prioritize. Because it's not that expensive to invest into, but it gives you way better returns than the other pieces.
For Kana, it should be magic attack, right?
Yes, exactly, yeah. Kana's a little bit different because their secondary is a second fan that you have to equip onto Haku. I don't know if you've seen that already.
I have not. I don't even know what that is.
Haku is the little guy that follows you that you can like summon. It's like a little fox that summons into a little dude.
Oh, I know what that is.
Yeah. So if you have your equip window, there's like an extra 5th tab here. For Haku, and that's basically just a completely empty screen with like one slot, and that's where you can equip a second fan into.
Oh, that's what you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where your secondary weapon goes. He basically holds on to your second fan.
Oh, okay. That's where we play our second fan.
And for that one, it's also just magic attack. Basically, none of the other stats actually really are super relevant. It's only like intellect does something and percentage magic attack, so that's by far most important. Even like boss damage and IED on it doesn't even count for the Haku, so it's only on the main weapon. But again, if you check exclamation mark secondaries, like all of that information is in there for all the classes. So usually I don't make like a Kana guide or a Marksman guide or a Pathfinder guide. Usually I have like a system guide, like what are secondaries and what do you get for all the classes there? Like what is drop and meso gear? How does that work and how does that calculate? And then once you can figure out how your class works and see what your kit does, and maybe ask other people who play the same class like what are our shortcomings, and then you check my guide and see how does the system work. Once you understand your class on a basic level, you'll be able to interact with the system with any character that you play. And because there's so many classes, I feel like that scales better towards than making 50 specific guides for every single class and then updating all of them whenever anything changes in the class, versus having a system guide and then just slightly updating that as the position of the system changes in the meta, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll just be pointing towards a lot of my commands and a lot of my guides throughout this, which is basically kind of what the other video was, but I guess we've laid a different foundation before we got to that point. So hopefully that makes it not the same as the video that you said was not
yeah, I mean, some things are
clear.
similar, but like I'm a very I'm like much newer than he was, so
yeah,
it's like a different case.
yeah. I don't remember exactly, but I think he was coming back after only like 2 years or after 3 years or something, right?
Yeah, and he was like, he already had like a month or two of playing time or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
I think now I want to understand. So we just talked about how to gear, sort of.
Yeah, I think what's probably still unclear for you is like, what is the point where you move on to the next piece, and how far do you take every piece?
Yeah, sort of, but I have a somewhat understanding. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask. You said tiering up like an item, like an equip. That's different from just like randomly rolling on it. I thought rolling on it is how you tier it up, or is there like a different method?
Yeah, it depends on the quality of the cube. So if the item is rare, any cube you use is going to have a small chance of tiering it up, because there's like no rare cubes. There's occult cubes that can do rare and epic. And as long as the possible tier that a cube can roll on is higher than the current tier, then there's a chance that it tiers you up to that tier, one tier at a time.
Do we know the chance, or?
That's a great question. We don't know that officially. No, that's actually part of our list of demands right now with the boycott, is that we want those official numbers. We know that they're not the same as KMS. KMS has released the official numbers a while ago, but GMS has not. We have approximating numbers by like thousands of cubes that people have accumulated, just the total stuff. So we have an idea, depending on what cube and depending on what rarity it already is. The numbers are a little bit different, but we kind of know how much it costs. Like the general benchmark is like to get a completely clean item, like Master Crossman at rare, like to get up to epic, and then black cube, epic through unique through legendary. That's usually like around a little bit lower, like around 1 billion mesos for an item.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so if you know that is like such a substantial cost that you won't even have any money left to roll it afterwards, then that's something that you just don't want to be thinking about at all. Then, like getting epic and getting all your stuff to epic and just rolling with occult cubes to get something useful there. Just that 1 billion spent over all your equips versus on one equip will give you just way more gains, right? And a lot of it, when it comes to funding, which is kind of what we're getting into, when direct resource allocation comes down to basically throwing it into the calculator or just looking at the grid, because the grid takes into account the costs. So if you're like, okay, I've got an item, I know, and we'll get into flames probably in a little bit. Like, I know what the flame score is. The flame score is roughly where the grid says that is a good flame score, then move on to the next piece, Or my stat is roughly where I want to be, then probably your potentials are fine. If your Star Force is lower, then you probably want to look for a Star Force event in the calendar and see if there's one coming up, and probably save up for that instead. And kind of use this as like a guide of which of the systems in the game that exist am I currently on the lower end of. That's the one where you can make the biggest gains with the same amount of time and or resources spent, and that's probably why you want to shift your priorities slightly towards.
Okay. I guess last question sort of is, where's like everyone at? Like, where's like the highest end at in the game? Like, where's like the top? And like, where's like the mid gamers at? And like, where like the, I guess I know where the beginners are at. They're just here. So,
well, that's basically this box on the bottom, right? So like, this is taking into account the dailies and the weeklies, and taking into account what is realistically achievable with these stats. If you're just completely started, check !new, right? That has like the information in the chat. And the dailies grid, that's kind of like when you're starting up the dailies is when you get closer to 200, because before level 200, there's not that much going on in this game, right? You're basically just grinding it up and working on Legion for those characters. And so near the end of the early stage, that which you can start thinking about doing CRA in a party and normal PAP solo. This is basically like an excerpt of like what is like a nice thing to aim for in the stage that you're in, and what is the next possible goal for. It's just a less detailed version of the dailies essentially. And then once you get into the mid game, it starts with like being able to do CRA with fewer people, or maybe even being able to solo and adding more bosses. Just the bosses that are like one step stronger than CRA. So you have HMAG, CPAP, Akechi, and then soloing CRA eventually. And then once you're in the middle, once you're around like 225, getting towards 230, again, depending on if you're getting heavily carried, you might progress faster but be weaker solo. If you're doing more solo, you'll progress slower in levels, but your gear will be much better because it has to be, otherwise you can't clear the content by yourself, right? So you might be able to do more and also have more skill, be more skilled with your character and with the boss mechanics, again, because you have to be, otherwise you'll just fail. So depending on how you play, there's still like kind of big disparity within the mid game, because you can just get carried all the way out and then not know what the fuck you're doing, but you can have really good gear. But then it's kind of misleading for this. So like Party, Damien, and Lotus will be coming around that point where you're like 220, 225, 230, again, depending on how you're progressing. And near the end of the stage, when you're reaching level 240, it'll be more like trying to solo Damien and Lotus.
Why does it say Party, Damien, and Lotus over there, but then in early, late, it also says Party, Damien, and the... Oh, it says Party, Damien, but not Lotus.
Hard Damien.
Okay, so why is...
Hard Damien is basically like 30 times the HP of normal Damien. So a lot of
why is that in early, late, but just Party, Damien itself is mid?
Because this guy has, well, now it's that thing. Remember that thing that I mentioned where the HP of the boss doesn't really matter. The HP of these bosses matters a lot. Hard Damien is basically the same mechanics as normal Damien, but he has about 30 times the HP. And Damien has this thing where he kind of has a lot of attacks where he's just not targetable at all, and you're just kind of like sitting and waiting for him to come back so you can kill him. So you have quite some downtime.
Late start of stage is... Am I reading this correctly? So wait, late and... Okay, so it says the row is in-game goal start of the stage. But then late is like the column, and that's harder than mid.
Yeah, so late game. So basically, I have like 4 stages of the game because there's so many levels, right? A lot of times people do like early, mid, and late, and that's kind of done. I thought that was not enough because then the ranges would be too wide. It'd be like, oh, mid game is from like level 210 to 250, and then your stat go from like 7k to like 40k, and it's like, okay, that's it becomes way harder to interpolate, like, well, if I'm at like 218, like, what does that mean? Where do I need to be? Like somewhere between 7 and 40. Like that's really hard to guesstimate for new players, right? So I split it up into 4 stages, which I think makes sense, and they're kind of gauged by when does the experience that you need to level up go up a lot, which means it's just, you know, you feel a hit also in progress, and when are there significant bosses with access to significant gear and upgrades and stuff that make it like, for example, like Damien and Lotus and Helix are like, basically that is like Helix is a big gatekeeper of getting you into the late game. You basically want the full superior set to be able to say like, I'm in late game now. And that's why it's just important to be able to kill that boss as a daily, because he has like probably the best equip set in the entire game, and he will help you move from those boss accessories that I mentioned, right, that you're going to get together with the CRA gear.
What do you mean by equip set? Like he has like the belt and like the earrings?
Yeah, belt, earrings, and then ring and pendant you buy from the coins from the boss as well. Right. And that full 4 set bonus is 30% boss and 30% IED, just as the set bonus for equipping the pieces, which is just broken beyond belief. Yeah, it used to be way easier to get as well, and people got very mad that it was made harder. Which, you know, it should have been made harder,
I feel like
but
it
not
should
in
be
the
opposite reaction.
Yeah, but a lot of people in this game have stopped really caring about if the game is balanced and if it makes sense, but more like if they can make their numbers go brr, because of that's just kind of how the game has gone. Is become
weird.
Yeah, people have just gotten more and more access and gotten more power creep and gotten stronger. So that's kind of like the general progress that everyone expects is for
I guess
numbers to
that makes sense,
keep going up. Yeah, so whenever numbers go down, it's just always perceived as a negative, even though for the overall health of the game, it makes total sense and it's a great decision. I say great decision. Helix himself was kind of bugged as well. The hitboxes are kind of broken. He's like a really annoying boss now with limited entries as well. So that kind of colored it in a really bad light, I would say.
But okay, so
the 4 stages.
It's early, mid, late, end.
Yeah.
But what is the white boxes? Like what is like the start of stage, middle of stage, end of stage? Like what do those mean?
Basically just this number, right? Just the level. Again, like the level is a representative, right? So like level 1 would be this. And then this would be level 209. So
sorry, not those boxes. At the bottom it says in-game goals, start of stage. Like what do these boxes mean?
So that's basically what you want to focus on. Yeah, it's what you want to focus on when you're in the beginning of the stage. So that's basically when you're level 1 to like level 100. That's this first box. And then
okay, I get it. Okay.
And then all the way up to level 210, you want to be focusing on this because that's like when you get to the end of the stage, the end of the early stage, and then you start the beginning of the mid stage. So that's like the next step after this. So it's basically going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I was reading left to right, but I should have been reading top to bottom. I don't know. I don't know why I was reading left to right. That's so stupid.
Yeah. No. Okay. I'm glad we figured that out. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, and Damien and Hard Damien is a huge jump. That's why you see there's almost like an entire stage in between them. Is because and then also, it's not just an entire jump, but they drop a whole bunch of different gear that can access a whole bunch of different power creep in the game. So that's why it's an important step to go from one to the other. So that's kind of like how the whole stage is built up. Yeah, put some thought into this, It's not just random numbers on a page. It's actually I surprised myself again with. It's
pretty good.
Yeah, I like this. I'm really proud of this thing. Yeah. So like where the furthest people are is basically here is like liberation of their Genesis weapon that they get from killing the Black Mage, and killing Saren, which is like the highest. It's not the hardest boss. It's not as hard as Black Mage, but they have the requirement of Sacred Power. So what we were talking about, Arcane Power. That works all the way up until Black Mage, and that's like the last bad guy in the Arcane River area. And then we go to Grandis, which has Sacred Power. So basically, you start back from 0. In terms of the multiplier. Awesome. You keep your Arcane Power, and you keep the stats from it, but those monsters don't respond to Arcane Power. They respond to Sacred Power. Respond to so you need to build new symbols and start leveling those up. So you kind of start from the ground up, but those symbols also give you stats. So you still keep getting stronger in the other content that you can already kill, but in that area you kind of start back with the new energy. So they made it both. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
And hopefully by then you're done with most of the other dailies for Arcane Power, because people like somewhat unjokingly call it daily story, because you can really get lost in the dailies at a certain point. Right. That's why it's good to every now and then be like, okay, how much time am I spending on the dailies? What do I want to achieve? Can I do that with this much time on dailies? Probably not. Which dailies are not super important and which ones can I skip sometimes?
So right now people are at Liberation Saren, like that's the
there's a bunch of people who have been liberated for a while, and they've basically just been training past level 275 to level 300 in the new areas, or they've been working on second and third and fourth characters. Maybe there's some people I think who have liberated on like 4 characters at this point in one account. That's like one dude, and then they're doing Saren. Like there's definitely some Saren parties going on. And it's mainly just leveling, because there isn't that much content past level 275. It's basically just Saren and then one area.
And then is there like another boss after that, like in like KMS or whatever, or?
There is one being released right now, yeah.
Oh.
And then
like
Saren,
right now?
I think so. No, I don't think it's already out. But it's soon.
In KMS or in GMS?
In KMS and so that new boss and Saren are going to share like drops for a new equip set that they're starting with. Yeah, and they're also rolling out another set of equips for accessories that are kind of like in between the boss accessory set. that is basically dropped by like all of the easy bosses up until like 200. And the pitch boss set, which is like all of the late game, like Hard Damien, Hard Lotus, like all of those. A lot of those we don't really move into because we have that Helix set that's really, really strong, and they overlap in which slots they require. So for us, you know, the pitch boss set kind of just like fills the slots that aren't already filled with the superior Golix set. And also they're super rare, and you know, even if you get it, you have to get the high star force, and if it blows up, you go back to square one. So it's kind of a Hail Mary to switch into that set right now. So there's like another set, the Dawn set, that's going to fit in between the boss accessory set and the pitch boss set. So there might be some pieces that will become meta in like the next 6 months. But again, we'll have to play around the Golix set because Superior Golix is just so good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Kalos,
Right.
Kalos or something is a new boss. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what I aim for. Pretty good. Yeah.
Do you think should I contact you again for like another session like 2 weeks after?
I think it's totally. If you feel like you need another session in 2 weeks, then I feel like I did a bad job. To be perfectly honest. Well, yeah, because you will have questions, but there are commands that should hopefully answer like 85 to 90% of your questions. Mm-hmm. And the 10% of questions that you have left, you can just throw in the chat, and either me or someone else will answer them. It's not that I don't want like your money for a session, but I because I need it. But the thing is that you can get pretty much, you should be able to get everything in a session like for free over time if you just like slowly check in here and there, like check in with another Kana, check in with a friend, check in with the chat, ask a question in Discord, and like slowly you can like piece together a session like that. Like I don't mind doing these, but so much is already out there. But yeah, I get that if you're just Googling, it's like all over the place. And, you know, I'm going to self-promote my own shit because I think it's really good. But I think I have, in a good sense, everything connected together also holistically, right? Like all of these commands are like internally consistent with each other, and they go by the same, with the same drive and the same information. So yeah, obviously I'm going to say that about my shit. Like probably Pocket thinks that his guide is really good. I would hope so. Otherwise he wouldn't make it, right? But yeah, I think that if you look over it again, and if there's a certain topic that you just absolutely don't get, just ask me or ask in the chat or ask me on Discord. And if it's like 2 or 3 things and you're like, okay, this is like half an hour of explanation to get through the bottom of this, we could do like another short session. But I feel like a lot of it, you also just, you kind of go into it.
Yeah,
I
think I'm pretty good.
Yeah, the things that are exact that I'll definitely advise you to look into is the star forcing and the transposing video. The sooner you get like star forcing completely figured out, the more money you will save in this game in the long term. So definitely look at the star forcing video. And then the second one I would say is the flaming video, like how flames work, what quality a flame is, how when you see any item with any flame, you'll be able to tell if it's a good one or a bad one based on the numbers in this grid. That video will explain that to you. If you check those 2 out, that'll set you up for like a huge amount of success.
So what are these? Okay, so what are the commands for like the dailies and the progression milestones?
Progression milestones is ! progression, and dailies is ! dailies. I try to make them keep them as simple as possible so that it's as easy as possible to find. If there's ever a command you have like trouble finding, let me know, because I can make aliases, which basically means that if you use another word than the exact word I've entered, I can enter that one as well, and it'll trigger the same command, so I can make it even easier to find.
All right. All right. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe IED for the details if you want to, because it goes over functional IED and visual IED, right? Like the difference we talked about with the stat window and then the on-hit effects. For IED, it's very important to know how much is being applied versus what is the stat window showing. So, and there's like a little bit of calculation that has to happen there when it comes to, when we were talking about the WSE, right? Weapon, secondary, and emblem for the potential. For some classes, for most classes, it'll be fine to roll some IED in the beginning because you won't have access to all the other sources in the game, right? The familiars won't be online yet. Your Legion and your Lynx aren't like optimized for IED in the beginning. That's later once you start bossing. But if you want to do the early bosses, IED is going to have very high value early on, and you probably want to keep maybe even 2, but definitely 1 line of IED pretty far into the game, pretty much until you get that Helix set online, that 30% boss and 30% IED. That's where most classes can drop a line of IED from their weapon, secondary, or emblem, and then reroll it for attack and reroll it for damage. But in general, rule of thumb is get a useful line on epic. If you're gonna go up to unique, you want to make sure that you can get 2 useful lines. Otherwise, it's not worth the investment. So either the second and the third line are both very useful, or the top line is super useful, or the top line is useful and one of the other 2 lines definitely does something for you. You know, so if you have an emblem and it's got like 9% attack and 3% stat or something, or 3% all stat, that's good enough. Move on. But if you're just like nothing on the top line, 6% attack on the second line, nothing on the third line, I would keep re-rolling that if it's unique. Otherwise, you're not. Oh yeah, and that's something that's easy for me to say now, but you'll develop that feeling as you go. You know, as you use like 100 cubes, and you're like, okay, that line was very good because I saw it once and I never saw it again. Maybe I should have settled for that. You know, you kind of learn that through trial and error.
Right.
Yeah, and don't worry about legendary too much early on. It's way too expensive.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
But yeah, best of luck. I'll upload it so you can like listen to it back. But yeah, as long as you've got your time allocation good in the beginning, list of dailies, and get that started. And yeah, just try to keep it fun. Try to keep enjoying yourself, and have fun passing your friends.
Last question.
Oh yeah.
Have you watched like any Destiny?
Any Destiny? The update?
Yeah. No, sorry. A content creator named Destiny. Have you watched him?
I've never. Yeah. I've been following his shit for way too long. Yeah.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I've probably watched like everything he's made in like the last 7 years or something. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense because I recognize some speech patterns. I watched him for a little bit, but I stopped.
Yeah, I want to say that I did things before I watched him, but I've noticed like a lot of similarities as well. But after a certain point, I don't even know anymore if maybe I probably picked up some stuff from him as well. But I don't even know anymore which things were mine and were his at a certain point. I know for sure that there were some things I already said that, and I've never I've directly communicated with him like once or twice, but like not. You know, in like a viewer call-in or something, but not like an actual like conversation or something. But there's definitely a few things that I already always did, like since way longer, that I then noticed that he did, and I was like, fuck, but he can't be copying me because he doesn't know who the fuck I am. Well, I mean, he's rated me like twice or thrice, but that doesn't like a connection make.
Yeah, no, I just noticed it. It was cool.
Yeah, it's probably,
It was like,
I like to think I'm a little bit more emotionally developed, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Best of luck, and yeah, don't be afraid to reach out if there's anything small or large, or you know, you're a good test case as well. If you see a command and you think it's unclear, or you know, like if this problem that you had with like seeing the stages, if like 20 more people have that, then maybe I have to redesign it, you know, because the goal is that it's clear. So if it's not clear enough, just let me know, and then I might redo some stuff.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Best of luck, and see you around.
Bye.
All right. That was a good totem. That was a good totem for you guys. Long totem. But yeah, so this is starting MapleStory in 2022. Lots of stuff probably changing along the way, but the best thing about what I love about my setup here is that I don't rely on YouTube for the guides. It would get the views. There's a lot of editing for that going on. I like the commands. The videos will stay relevant, and then the commands will just adjust to the situation. So if the classes get remade or everyone gets way stronger, these numbers will change. If dailies get added, I'll just add a line into the dailies video, right? I don't have to redo the videos. I don't have to redo a bunch of the stuff. So that's why I like the setup with the commands, and I like the setup with just peeking into the commands every now and then with these videos. So hopefully this was informational to you. If you're just starting MapleStory, welcome. We're currently boycotting the game because it's in a terrible place when it comes to the server stability. Hopefully, if you watch this video 6 months from now, some of that has been alleviated and it's not the current state of the game anymore, hopefully. future viewers. I hope hopefully you guys have good news for me. But for anyone else, yeah, just exclamation mark new in the chat. Dailies, game stages. That's a good solid starting foundation. You won't miss out on anything super important. We didn't go over it here at all, but like the event calendar on the patch notes, I also have that exclamation mark events. I list all of the events that are going on as long as they have been officially announced. So I try to not like, cover breaking news, but more specifically wait for official releases on. Looks like January 4th is over. So we are gonna hide January 4th row. There we go. Which means that this one is also gone. Hide column. Whoop, there we go. So basically a little bit color coded on what is going on, and you can just click on whatever is in here and it'll go right into the patch notes to where the information is, so you can read up on what it is. Like I talked in the video, like, look at what you can possibly get, then look at what you need to do and see if it's worth your time personally, and then decide to go for it, yes or no, right? Be your own advocate in where you spend your time. That's important. So yeah, hopefully it was informational to you. If you guys want to catch me live, I stream live on Twitch every day, so catch me there or check out any of my other videos. And if you see anything that seems out of place, that seems wrong, or you need extra information, just drop by or hit me up on Discord. You can find me anywhere under Scardor. It should be pretty easy to find. And thanks for watching, and best of luck, and welcome to MapleStory. It's a shit show, but we're making the most of it together. It's pretty fun when it's not super frustrating, but most of the time it's both. All right, I'll see you guys around. Thanks for watching.